Chapter 2186. Yun Luofeng didn't stand on ceremony. After Fu Qing finished speaking, she immediately walked in. Ever since she left the orphanage, she grew up in her mentor's house. She and Fu Qing were like sisters. It was just that her mentor's wife wasn't satisfied with her existence, and it was her mentor who insisted on keeping her. Thinking back to the past and seeing everything familiar in the room, Yun Luofeng's heart warmed, and her lips curled into a smile. It felt good to be back. Sister Luofeng, please have some tea. Fu Qing wore an apron and walked to Yun Luofeng's side with a cup of tea. She had an innocent smile on her face, and it was obvious that she was inexperienced. Qingqing, can you tell me what's going on? How did your dad get expelled from Huaxia University? Yun Luofeng frowned and asked. Fu Qing froze and bit her lip. Sister Luofeng, not long after you were in danger, Dad made a mistake at work, and someone reported him for hooking up with a female student. Yun Luofeng's face darkened. Teacher wouldn't do such a thing. At the mention of this matter, Fu Qing was very angry. Dad definitely wouldn't do such a thing. He was framed. We all know about this, but the school still suspended him from his position without any explanation. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng's face became uglier and uglier. After a long time, she said, I just met your mother at the hospital. She said that teacher was suspended because of me. What? Fu Qing was furious, and her little face was red. You met that woman. Don't listen to her nonsense, she's lying. She also knows why Dad was suspended. This has nothing to do with you. Yun Luofeng pursed her lips and didn't say anything. No matter what the reason was, she wouldn't let go of the person who caused her teacher to be suspended. Also, Fu Qing said angrily, back then, Dad had only been suspended for a few days, and she ran away with someone. More importantly, she knew that Dad didn't do such a thing, but because Dad couldn't give her a good life, she left. This kind of person doesn't deserve to be my mother. Fu Qing got angrier as she spoke. She would never forgive that woman in this lifetime. Yun Luofeng caught some clues from Fu Qing's words. She frowned and asked, your mother doesn't seem like someone who trusts teacher that much. Why do you say that she knows that teacher didn't do such a thing? At that time, our family of 3 was together. In the end, someone took a video and posted it online. There was a date and time on the video, so I could confirm which day it was taken. That person did look like my father, but I could tell that he wasn't my father. Yun Luofeng had his suspicions from the start. No matter what, Huaxia Academy was still a high school, and it was impossible for them to casually suspend a professor. Looking at it now, it turned out that the professor had been framed. Since the 3 of you are together, there should be an alibi for the teacher. After Yun Luofeng said this, Fu Qing bit her lip and shook her head. Apart from me and that woman, there is no other proof. And because we are relatives, our words cannot be trusted. Yun Luofeng did not continue on this deep topic. She and Yun Xiao looked at each other, a cold glint hidden in their eyes. No matter who it was, she wouldn't let them off for framing her teacher. Qing, you should be in university by now, right? Which university did you go to? Yun Luofeng's face returned to a smile as she asked. Chapter 2187. The smile on Fu Qing's face froze, and she lowered her head. Huaxia University. In reality, she didn't want to go to Huaxia University, but her father wouldn't let her give up such a good school, and insisted that she enter Huaxia University. In order not to disappoint her father, she could only enter this school. However, in the school, everyone knew that she was Fu Ru's daughter. Countless rumors and curses came one after another, and she had no human rights to speak of in this school. If it weren't for her father, she would have given up long ago. Luofeng, you're here. At this moment, the door was opened, and Fu Ru appeared at the door, carrying a basket of groceries. When he saw Yun Luofeng, there was no surprise in his eyes, and he said with a smile, "I guessed that you would definitely come to my place for lunch. You guys wait here first, I'll go cook." "Teacher," Yun Luofeng stood up and smiled faintly, "it's getting late, you don't have to busy yourself, let's go eat." Fu Ru was startled, but didn't say anything. He nodded slightly. "Okay, then I'll put these groceries in the fridge first, I'll cook when I come back tonight." After saying this, Fu Ru went to work. Yun Luofeng took the opportunity of going to the toilet to call Nangong Yuni. When she heard Nangong Yuni's voice, she immediately got to the point. "Nangong, what way do you have to get money?" "Money?" "Yun Luofeng, if you want money, I can lend it to you." "No," Yun Luofeng shook her head, "what I need is a large amount of RMB, just that isn't enough." If she wanted revenge, the first step was to gather enough funds. Nangong Yuni was silent for a moment. "Do you remember Shuedong?" "Shuedong." Yun Luofeng froze, and a face with square eyes appeared in her mind. Nangong Yuni guessed that Yun Luofeng had already thought of this person, and the corners of her lips rose slightly. "Shuedong, that bookworm's family runs a pharmacy, but it's just a private pharmacy. You have so many elixirs, you can completely sell them at the pharmacy. At that time, even if you set a high price, people will come to buy them." Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed lightly. "That's right. This is indeed a good idea. Also, I know that your grandfather's status is quite high, and you should know quite a lot of people. Help me book a private room in the Spring Garden restaurant. I want to bring my teacher there for a meal." Spring Garden Snow was one of the more famous restaurants in the capital. If you wanted to book a private room, you had to book it a year in advance. However, with the identity of Nangong Yuni's grandfather here, it wouldn't be a problem. "Ah, my grandfather mentioned you just now. He said that he wanted to thank you properly. If you want to ask him for help, he would be more than happy to help you." Nangong Yuni's voice was very cheerful. His mood was also very good. "That's right, Yun Luofeng, Hongwuan has already agreed to my proposal." In the end, Nangong Yuni added another sentence. Hearing this, the corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up and a smile appeared on his face. "Then congratulations. However, this isn't the 7 continents, this is Huaxia. Back then, you even chased after the department beauty of Huaxia Academy. Unfortunately, that department beauty thought that your family was ordinary and wasn't willing to accept you. If she knew that you were the grandson of the old leader, she would definitely come back to find you. At that time, would you leave with her?" Nangong Yuni chuckled twice. "At that time, I was also in love for the first time. I didn't understand these things until I met Hongwuan. Only then did I realize that she was the person I wanted to pursue in this life." Chapter 2188. "So, I won't abandon her like anyone else. Otherwise, you can beat me to death at any time." Nangong Yuni's voice was filled with flattery, which made Yun Luofeng's heart relax. If asked who her most important friend was in the 7 continents, she would choose Hongwuan without hesitation. Therefore, she really hoped that Hongwuan could be happy. "You know my master. If you want to come, you can come at any time. We'll wait for you at Spring Garden Snow." After saying this, Yun Luofeng hung up the phone, pushed open the door and walked out. When she pushed open the bathroom door, she found Fu Qing eavesdropping on them. In that instant, Yun Luofeng helplessly facepalmed. "What are you doing here?" Fu Qing laughed awkwardly. "I wanted to hear who you were calling." "Nangong Yuni." The corners of Yun Luofeng's lips rose, and a smile appeared on her face. "What? Senior Nangong?" Fu Qing jumped in surprise. "Is he still alive like you?" Oh right, I remember that Senior Nangong pursued you for a period of time. Why didn't you develop anything? As soon as she said this, a cold aura came from the side, and Yun Luofeng's body was instantly pulled into an embrace. Yun Zhao's expression was very ugly. He pursued you. Yes. Yun Luofeng blinked. What's wrong? He should be glad that you didn't accept him. The man's voice was low and hoarse, but it was cold, otherwise, would have killed him. Fu Qing was originally frightened by Yun Zhao's aura, but after hearing this, she came back to her senses and said weakly, "Did I say something wrong?" This man was too terrifying. How could Sister Luofeng stand him? Teacher. Yun Luofeng's gaze turned, and saw Fu Ru walking out of the kitchen, and said, "Let's go, I've already booked a private room." Fu Ru hesitated for a moment, then nodded lightly, "Okay." He began to weigh the money in his pocket, whether it was enough to cover the expenses this time. At this moment, in a luxurious villa, Nangong Lan sat angrily on the sofa, her delicate little face full of anger. She said very unwillingly, "Mom, why isn't that old thing dead yet? Did the people you sent not hit it hard enough?" Zhao Meishua's expression didn't look too good either. Logically speaking, such a heavy injury shouldn't be able to be healed. Who exactly is that Yun Luofeng? How did you manage to save the heavily injured old man? Hearing this, Nangong Lan fiercely bit her lips. "I know Yun Luofeng. She's also a rather famous student at Huaxia University. I heard that she also disappeared in the explosion 5 years ago. I didn't expect her to actually return with Nangong Uni." Oh. Zhao Meishua raised her eyebrows and asked, "Do you know who Yun Luofeng is?" At the mention of Yun Luofeng, Nangong Lan's eyes flashed with disdain. It said that Yun Luofeng's parents died when she was young, and she was adopted by her aunt and uncle. Who knew that she was an ingrate? She lived in her aunt and uncle's house and even bullied her uncle's son. Because she was jealous of her aunt and uncle's love for her son, she almost strangled an innocent child to death. More importantly, her aunt and uncle didn't touch a single cent of the family property that her parents had left behind, and kept it all for her. But this ingrate framed her aunt and uncle for seizing her property. In the end, her aunt and uncle were so angry that they donated all of their property, not leaving a single cent for her. Chapter 2189. Tell me, what kind of person is this kind of woman? Nangong Lan was full of resentment. Indeed, what kind of person is worthy of befriending? Nangong Uni isn't a good person either. Our Nangong family raised him, but he doesn't know how to be grateful. He's worse than a beast. Zhao Meishua's eyes flashed, but she didn't say much. She smiled and said, "Lan, you're tired. Go and rest first. Mom will think of a way to get rid of that old man." "Okay," Nangong Lan nodded, "that old man is my grandfather. I shouldn't want him to die, but he only has eyes for Nangong Uni, that little bastard. If he didn't want to let Nangong Uni inherit everything in the Nangong family, we wouldn't have treated him like this." Thinking of this, Nangong Lan felt a little better and a vicious glint flashed across her eyes. Zhao Meishua closed her eyes gently. "Lan, remember, the Nangong family will only be ours. She would never give it to anyone else." Nangong Lan bit her lips and walked up the stairs. Soon, she reached the second floor. After Nangong Lan left, Zhao Meishua opened her eyes and took out her phone to make a call. "Hello." A low voice came from the other end of the phone, causing Zhao Meishua to tighten her grip on the phone. Seeing that Zhao Meishua didn't say anything, the person on the other end said, "Aren't you afraid that the Nangong family will see you calling me in broad daylight?" Zhao Meishua pursed her lips. "I miss you, and that damn old man isn't dead." "What? Not dead? How was that possible? He had done it flawlessly." This old man would definitely die, and no one would be able to trace it back to him. A young lady called Yun Luofeng saved him, Xiao Meishue said as she lowered her eyes slightly. The person on the other end of the phone didn't speak for a long time. After a while, he said, "Then why are you looking for me now?" "I want you to help me create an accident again. This time, I don't believe that he won't die." Zhao Meishue's eyes flashed with viciousness as she gritted her teeth. The person was silent for a moment. It's already not easy to create an accident once. If there's a next time, it won't be so easy. I don't care, you must help me. Even if it wasn't for me, it was for our daughter. Could it be that you have the heart to see her being bullied by that stinking brat Nangong Uni in the Nangong family? As long as the old man is dead, I will deal with Nangong Chuan. Nangong Chuan is your husband. Can you really bear to do that? So what? I only want the wealth of the Nangong family. What happens to others has nothing to do with me. Besides, the person I love has always been you. If it wasn't for the Nangong nobles, why would I have chosen to marry Nangong Chuan? Perhaps she was afraid that the man in front of her would be dissatisfied. Xiao Meishue hurriedly added another sentence. Her voice was very gentle, so gentle that it made the man's bones soften. The man in front of her didn't speak for a long time. Just when Xiao Meishue thought he wasn't going to speak again, that deep voice sounded again. Her still doesn't know that she's my daughter. That's right. I can't tell her for now. Otherwise, she won't be able to take the blow. All right. The man pondered for a moment. I will help you, but I also have a part in this Nangong family. A cold light flashed in Xiao Meishue's eyes, but her voice was still gentle. That's only natural. After all, you're the only man I've ever loved deeply in my life. Isn't what's mine yours? Chapter 2190. The man on the other end of the line said something to Xiao Meishue before the call was hung up. After she hung up the phone, a cold light flashed in her eyes. She laughed icily and said, "Men are really stupid. Nangong Chuan is like that, and so is he. I've played them both like a fiddle." "Who is it?" Suddenly, Xiao Meishue seemed to have sensed something. She immediately turned her head and saw a little hamster running right in front of her. Xiao Meishue frowned. "Why is there a hamster in the villa? Looks like I need to get someone to clean it up." She didn't care about a little hamster. Anyway, the little hamster didn't understand human language. It had no idea what she was talking about just now. But, why did the little hamster look like a recording pen in its mouth just now? At this thought, Xiao Meishue couldn't help but laugh. She must have seen wrongly. Why would a hamster run around with a recording pen in its mouth? This clearly didn't make sense. At this thought, Xiao Meishue didn't think any further. She walked up to the second floor, her high heels clacking against the ground, echoing throughout the empty villa. Spring garden snow. There were many luxury cars parked at the entrance. Hence, when Yun Luofeng and the others got out of the taxi, they instantly attracted countless gazes. "Dad, Sister Luofeng." It was Fu Qing's first time in such a high-class restaurant. She subconsciously shrank back in fear. Especially now, she felt like she was in a zoo being watched. "Luofeng, this." Fu Ru was also a little stunned. "The place you booked is Spring Garden Snow. I remember that the private room can only be booked a year in advance. How did you get it?" Yun Luofeng smiled. "I asked Nangong for help." "Nangong?" Fu Ru blinked in shock. When did Nangong become so powerful? But, thinking of the tens of thousands of yuan left in her bank card, Fu Ru gritted her teeth and walked in. That tens of thousands of yuan should be enough for today's meal, right? She was waiting to celebrate the return of her student and let Qing or enjoy a good meal. Of course, Yun Luofeng didn't know what Fu Ru was thinking. She held Yun Yanfeng and Yun Chutian with one hand and Yun Xiao by her side. The group walked towards the restaurant. Swoosh! At this moment, screams came from behind. Yun Chutian, who was originally by Yun Luofeng's side, looked over curiously. His beautiful eyes were full of amazement. It was a red sports car. It stopped at an extremely fast speed. Shortly after, the door of the sports car was opened, and a man and a woman walked out of the sports car. The man was wearing a black leather jacket and looked quite handsome. The woman beside him was wearing a strapless dress, and her curves could be seen when she bent down. Ah! Yun Chutian's eyes, which were originally filled with amazement, immediately covered Yun Yanfeng's eyes with his small hands when he saw the woman in such a revealing outfit. They yelled. They had been in Huaxia for a long time and had seen many people who wore revealing clothes, but the woman in front of them had revealed everything that should be revealed. It was no wonder that Yun Chutian would have such a reaction. Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao looked at each other. It looked like these two little fellows were getting along better than they had expected. Yun up. Yun, 1, Yun, I, 1, 1. Chapter 2191. Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's Fu Qing from our school. The scantily clad woman held on to the man next to her and walked arrogantly toward Fu Qing. Her expression was arrogant, but her eyes were full of disdain. Don't tell me you're here to spend money at Spring Garden Snow. Do you think that little bit of money you have is enough for a meal at Spring Garden Snow? Yun Luofeng, who was about to leave, paused when he heard this and turned to look at Fu Qing. You know her. Fu Qing nodded with difficulty. She's my classmate at Huaxia University, classmate. Yun Luofeng's eyes flickered, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Sister Luofeng, brother-in-law, let's go. Don't worry about her. Fu Qing gritted her teeth and said. Hey! Seeing that Fu Qing was about to leave, the woman flew into a rage and said angrily, Fu Qing, how dare you ignore me? Do you believe that I won't tell the whole school that you found a sugar daddy outside? If you didn't find a sugar daddy, how could a poor bitch like you come to a place like Spring Garden Snow? Fu Qing clenched her fists tightly. There were a few times when she wanted to lose her temper, but she finally held it in and was about to walk into Spring Garden Snow. The woman was furious. She raised her hand and wanted to grab Fu Qing. But before she could touch Fu Qing, she was grabbed by a hand. Say what you just said again. Yun Luofeng's voice was demonic and cold, causing the woman to shiver all over. She quickly calmed down and looked up at the woman who was threatening her. What do you want? The man beside her wanted to say something when he saw that his female companion was being bullied. Who knew that when his gaze landed on Yun Luofeng's face, he could no longer speak. The woman in front of him was too beautiful, and she had a demonic aura that could easily captivate people. After a while, the man returned to his senses, and his lips curled into a smile. Miss, do you know what price you have to pay for attacking my female companion? But, seeing that you're not bad-looking, if you're willing to spend a night with me, I'll let you go. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding air turned cold, and a cold aura flowed in the air. Fu Rui was a little anxious. She quickly walked in front of Yun Luofeng and said, Luofeng, you must not agree to him. Teacher will make the decision for you. Oh, so you're a teacher. The man sneered and said sarcastically, Is being a teacher very powerful? I hate teachers the most in my life. If I don't break your leg today, I'll change my surname to yours. After saying that, the man raised his leg and wanted to kick Fu Rui. Fu Rui was so scared that her face turned pale, but she still didn't move. Bang! Suddenly, a large hand grabbed the man's foot and exerted force. In an instant, a ghostly wail and wolf howl rang out, scaring the surrounding people into hurriedly moving away for fear that they would be affected. "Ah! My leg, my leg!" The man's voice was heart-wrenching. His handsome face was contorted and his eyes were bloodshot. The female companion who had previously insulted Fu Qing was also scared out of her wits. She widened her eyes in astonishment and looked at the cold-looking man in disbelief. Compared to Yun Luofeng, this man was even more terrifying, crippling his leg just because of a disagreement. "Father, this person just insulted Mother. Don't let him off so easily. I suggest we cut off his tongue and see if he can still speak." Yun Yanfeng placed his hands on his hips and glared angrily at the man who was rolling on the ground. Chapter 2192. Yun Zhao's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Her face was expressionless and cold like a god of death. "No, I was wrong, please let me go, I was really wrong." After the man heard Yun Yanfeng's words, he hurriedly begged for mercy, afraid that Yun Zhao would really cut off his tongue in a fit of anger. He believed that this man would definitely do such a thing. Yun Luofeng tugged at Yun Zhao and shook his head at him. Soon after, he walked towards the man and lowered his face. He smiled soundlessly and said, "Remember, the reason why you're here today is all because of your female companion. If she hadn't randomly provoked others, you wouldn't have ended up like this." The scantily clad woman trembled and her face was filled with terror. Indeed, after Yun Luofeng's words fell, she clearly sensed the anger in the man's eyes. "Yun Zhao, let's go." Yun Luofeng slowly turned around and walked towards Chen Yuan Shui. Perhaps it was because of this matter that the originally lively Fu Qing became silent. She didn't say a single word along the way. However, when she reached the door of the private room, she suddenly said in an extremely weak voice, "Sister Luofeng, I'm sorry, I've caused trouble for you again. 5 years ago, when Yun Luofeng was still around, she was bullied because of her weak personality. Every time, it was Yun Luofeng who stood up for her and beat up those who bullied her until they didn't dare to touch her again. It had always been like this since she was young. It had never changed." Yun Luofeng's footsteps paused. She didn't turn around and turned her back to the young girl behind her. "I can't protect you forever, so you must let yourself grow up. Only when you become strong will you not be bullied by others." Whether it was the 7 continents or Huaxia, this sentence was equally effective. In this world where people bullied the weak and feared the strong, only when they became strong enough would they not be bullied by others. "But, Fu Qing gently pursed her lips, her expression somewhat gloomy. "Teacher is already old, he can't protect you forever, and I won't stay here forever either. In the future, you can only protect yourself." She didn't know if Fu Qing understood her words, but Yun Luofeng didn't say much and led Fu Qing into the private room. "Sir, would you like to order now, or?" A waiter walked in and asked respectfully. "Teacher." Yun Luofeng turned to Fu Rui. "Nangong and his girlfriend will be here soon. Why don't we wait for them to arrive before ordering?" "Nangong has a girlfriend." "Ha!" Fu Rui laughed heartily, sweeping away her gloominess. "Okay, then we'll wait for them to arrive. You can leave first." The waiter smiled and left. When the door to the private room was closed, a series of cell phone ringtones rang. Fu Qing took out her phone and glanced at it. Her expression was a little awkward. "Sister Luofeng, she's my classmate. Take it." Yun Luofeng said lightly. Ever since he saw that woman, Yun Luofeng had been very worried about Fu Qing's life at school. Now, he wanted to see why his classmates were looking for her. Fu Qing obediently picked up the phone and put it on speaker mode, so everyone could hear a voice coming from the other end of the phone. Fu Qing, Zhong Xiaoyu just told me that you're also here at Spring Garden Shui. The voice was very gentle, but it gave people a feeling that it was artificial. Yun Luofeng frowned slightly. I did meet Zhong Xiaoyu at the entrance of Spring Garden Shui. Fu Qing bit her lip. Why are you looking for me? Chapter 2193. It's like this. Today is our class gathering, and it's being held here at Spring Garden Snow. Xiao Yu also came for the gathering, but she had to leave at the last minute. Do you mind if we join you? The woman on the other end of the phone suggested kindly. Fu Qing sneered. They were probably here to watch her make a fool of herself. After all, everyone knew that her father was expelled from school, and her family was in decline. It was impossible for her to have spare money to eat at Spring Garden Snow. More importantly, she actually didn't know about the class gathering until now. Fu Qing, don't blame us for not informing you. The woman on the other end of the phone clearly considered this as well. She said, this gathering is shared by all of us. We were afraid that you couldn't afford it, so we didn't inform you. Since you're here now, let's go together. Which room are you in? Fu Qing pursed her lips. Just as she was about to refuse, Yun Luofeng's indifferent voice rang in her ears. Let them come over. It seemed that it was time for her to help Fu Qing get rid of those hidden dangers, so that these people wouldn't bother her often. Okay. Fu Qing nodded lightly, then replied, I'm in the Spring Pavilion. You guys come over. Not far away, in a private room, a petite and beautiful girl hung up the phone and made an okay gesture to the men and women in the room. No problem. She agreed. Right, she's in the Spring Pavilion. Spring Pavilion. Among the group of people, a shrewd-looking man was a little shocked. Lin Qi, what's wrong? The others also turned to this man. In fact, a place like Spring Garden Snow was not a place that ordinary people could set foot in. Just booking a private room required a year in advance. This time, they could only enter Spring Garden Snow with Lin Qi's help. Of course, the money for the gathering was also paid for by Lin Qi. The reason why he said that to Fu Qing was just to find an excuse. Lin Qi slowly came back to his senses, his eyes complicated. The numbered private rooms we booked are just ordinary private rooms. However, there are 4 private rooms in Spring Garden Snow that can't be booked even if you have the money. Those private rooms are respectively spring, summer, autumn, and winter pavilions. Those who can enter these private rooms must have a very high status in China. What? The students were all shocked. The girl who had just called Fu Qing was called Pang Ziyue. She was shocked and said in disbelief, could it be that Fu Qing is a mistress? When did Fu Qing become a sugar daddy? This. Pang Ziyue's expression was very conflicted, and she found it difficult to speak. It was just when little you called me. She said that Fu Qing personally admitted that she had a sugar daddy, and it was that sugar daddy who booked the private room for her. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other, and the disdain in their eyes became even more intense. Fu Qing's luck is pretty good. It seems like she's not an ordinary rich man. He must be very powerful. Don't say that. Pang Ziyue bit her lip. Not all women want to be rich. At least I want to marry for love, not for bread. There are only a few women like Fu Qing. After all, if I have to sleep with someone I don't love, I'll definitely feel like dying. After hearing Pang Ziyue's words, the male students who had scoffed at Fu Qing looked at her in agreement. Fu Qing may look pure and clean, but she could actually do such a thing. You really couldn't know a person's face. No wonder her father could do something like rape a female student. Chapter 2194. Let's go see Fu Qing now. Lin Qi said after a moment of silence. The others also stood up one after another, and under the guidance of the waiter, they walked towards the private room of the spring pavilion. At this moment, in the spring pavilion, Fu Qing was a little uneasy. Those classmates wouldn't be kind enough to tell her about the gathering. They must be here to see a joke. So, she suddenly regretted agreeing to Pang Ziyue. Not long after, there was a commotion outside the door. Just as Fu Qing looked up, a group of people pushed open the door of the private room and rushed in from the outside. Fu Qing, I didn't expect you to be here. Pang Ziyue smiled slightly and slowly walked towards Fu Qing. The smile on her face was gentle, and there was a smile in her eyes. She wanted to see if the man who kept Fu Qing was also here, but after looking around, other than Fu Rui, who was a little older, the others were just a couple and 2 children. But Pang Ziyue knew Fu Rui, so she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Daddy, Mommy. Yun Chutian curled his small mouth and snuggled into Yun Luofeng's arms. Why did you let these people in? They emit a stench, even more disgusting than beggars. It's really annoying. When had Lin Qi ever suffered such humiliation? Just as he was about to get angry, the man in front of him suddenly raised his head and swept a cold glance at him. This glance made Lin Qi's back break out in a cold sweat. His face was a little pale, and his lips trembled. He had never seen a person's gaze that could be so terrifying. Yun Zhao's head had been lowered, so the others didn't see his face clearly. Now, when the man raised his head, they just saw that handsome face that made people scream. Pang Ziyue was even more stunned. She had never seen such a good-looking man. He was so much better than those idols and celebrities. Pang Ziyue. Fu Qing naturally noticed Pang Ziyue's expression, and her face was a little angry. He's my brother-in-law. How can you stare at a man? Pang Ziyue's expression was a little awkward. She retracted her gaze and said, I was just curious. Why would there be a man with such long hair, so I unconsciously took a few more glances. If I affected you, then I apologize. But she had to say that this man looked really good with long hair. Her heart skipped a few beats when she saw that handsome and cold face of his. Fu Qing, your words are too much. Don't you know what kind of person Pang Ziyue is? How could she have designs on anyone else? That's right. Do you think everyone is like you? He had no sense of propriety. You should learn from Pang Ziyue what makes a good woman. Fu Qing was so angry that her face turned red. Tears of grievance were about to fall, but she endured it and glared at the group of people in front of her. Paw! Suddenly, Yun Luofeng's palm fiercely fell on the table. The originally incomparably hard table, under this palm of hers, broke into 2. No one said anything. Pang Ziyue's eyes widened in horror as she stared at the peerlessly beautiful face in astonishment. The fear in her heart rendered her speechless. If you want to stay, then keep quiet. If you don't want to stay, then get the hell out of here right now. The woman's voice was icy cold, and it revealed an awe-inspiring and murderous aura, causing the entire room to fall silent. Chapter 2195. Everyone was frightened by Yun Luofeng. They didn't say anything and sat down in silence. Bai Yan slapped the menu on the table. I just heard on the phone that you guys are going Dutch for this gathering, right? The corners of their mouths twitched. Those words were only used to deceive Fu Qing, so they didn't plan on going Dutch from the start. However, they could pay first and have Lin Qi transfer it to them when they got back. We already made it very clear just now. It's going Dutch. If you guys want to participate, I'm afraid Fu Qing will have to pay a bit more. Pang Ziyue smiled slightly and explained with good intentions. If that's the case, then I won't wait for Nangong. I'll order now. Yun Luofeng had already scanned through the contents of the menu. Now, he had even listed out the more expensive dishes. Every time she named a dish, Lin Chi paused for a moment. A trace of doubt flashed through his eyes. Although he didn't come to Spring Garden Snow often, he still came a few times a year to enjoy it. Why hadn't he heard of the dishes Yun Luofeng named before? But, although Spring Garden Snow's dishes were expensive, they were still within the range he could afford, so he didn't say much. Teacher, can you drink? Yun Luofeng looked up at Fu Rue and asked. Fu Rue was a little hesitant. She weighed the remaining balance in her card and shook her head in the end. How about this, teacher? I heard Nangong talk about the wine here. It seems pretty good. Everyone can have a bottle. Yun Luofeng didn't seem to see Fu Rui's movements. She named a bottle of red wine and said, "That's it. You can leave." All right, please wait a moment. The dishes will be served soon. The waiter bowed respectfully and retreated out the door. Not long after, the private room's door was pushed open. Nangong Uni and Hong Won walked in hand. When they saw so many people sitting there, they were stunned. Nangong, you know Fu Qing. These people are all her classmates. When she said the last sentence, Yun Luofeng's tone clearly became indifferent. Nangong Uni knew she had a problem with these people. He couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips. Little Qing's classmates. It doesn't look like much. As long as it was someone Yun Luofeng didn't like, Nangong Uni wouldn't like either. Hence, when he saw these people, he couldn't help but mock them. You. Just as Lin Chi was about to get angry, the person next to him immediately pulled his sleeve, signaling him not to be impulsive. I know this man. He's our senior from a few years ago, Nangong Uni. He's pretty good at fighting, and he can take on all of us here by himself. News of the explosion at Hua Xia Academy that year had been sealed, so the people outside didn't know the truth. Naturally, they didn't know that Nangong Uni had already been missing for 5 years. Oh. Suddenly, a scream was heard. Everyone turned to the source of the voice. Peng Ziyue's face was pale, cold sweat dripping down her face. She bit her lips tightly as she glared at Hong Wuan. Hong Wuan retracted her leg apologetically. I'm sorry, I didn't see your leg and accidentally stepped on you. I apologize. From the moment she entered the room, Hong Wuan saw that this woman's eyes were very dishonest. She kept glancing at Yun Xiao, so she couldn't help but step on her foot on purpose. She even used her spiritual energy. One could imagine how heavy that foot was. It made Peng Ziyue feel as if a knife had pierced the back of her foot. It hurt so much that her entire body trembled. Chapter 2196. You must have done it on purpose. Peng Ziyue was a little angry. She suddenly stood up from her seat and said angrily. Hong Wuan glanced at her indifferently. You've already apologized. If you insist that I did it on purpose, then I can't do anything about it. Moreover, you can let others see the shoes I'm wearing. You say that I stepped on you, do you believe it? Peng Ziyue was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She couldn't even say a word. The others also stood up one after another and looked at Hong Wuan. They clearly saw that pair of antique flats. Being stepped on by such shoes wouldn't cause much of a sensation, but Peng Ziyue's reaction was indeed a little exaggerated. Peng Ziyue also understood this point. She bit her lip tightly. I did react a little too violently just now because you stepped on me really hard. If I offended you, I'm very sorry. Hearing this, Hong Wuan didn't say anything else. She sat down on her own and said with a smile, Luo Feng, I'm hungry. Have you ordered all the dishes? Yes, they'll be served very soon. Indeed, just as Yun Luo Feng finished speaking, the waiter came over with a plate of dishes. The aroma of the dishes instantly attracted everyone's attention. They also forgot about the quarrel just now and all began to eat. The entire dining atmosphere was rather harmonious. Those people didn't dare to say a word while eating, but their occasional disdainful gazes betrayed them. Time passed very quickly. In just a moment, all the dishes had been swept clean. When Yun Luo Feng shouted for the bill, the waiter slowly walked over with the bill in his hand. Hello, Mississippi. You've spent a total of 4.5 million this time. What? Lin Chi, who was wiping her lips, immediately jumped up in shock when she heard this. She said angrily, Are you tricking me? I've come to Spring Garden Snow many times. Each time, it's at most 30 to 50,000. This time, you're actually telling me that a single meal cost 4.5 million. If it was someone from another restaurant, they would definitely have snorted disdainfully when they heard this. However, the waiters in Spring Garden Snow Inn were rather polite and didn't feel unhappy because of this. Instead, they explained seriously. Sir, it's true that you've come to our Spring Garden Snow consumer country, but you've always been in an ordinary private room. Out of consideration for the customer's requirements, the dishes in an ordinary private room are more difficult to evaluate. Even if you order the best dish or the most expensive wine, it won't exceed 100,000 yuan. However, this is a VIP private room, so the dishes are different from those in ordinary private rooms. Lin Chi's face was very ugly. Indeed, these dishes were more exquisite and delicious than those he had eaten before, but the price was also ridiculously high. Sir, there are 30 people in each of your seats. Each bottle of red wine costs 100,000 yuan, so the price of red wine alone is already 3 million yuan. Lin Chi trembled even more. That bottle of red wine actually cost 100,000 yuan. That mouthful of his was like drinking RMB. Lin Chi, I don't care. Anyway, you said you're treating this time. One of the teenagers stood up first. So, I won't take out a penny. Shut up. Lin Chi's eyes were bloodshot. He roared angrily, That's a few million, not a few yuan. Where the hell do you want me to find these millions? This money, we have to split evenly. Don't think I'll be the fool. Don't be nervous, Peng Ziyue bit her lower lip and said softly, We've definitely been scammed. Isn't it just a bottle of wine? Why is it so expensive? It's almost the price of a small car. Chapter 2197. Shut up. Lin Chi shouted angrily, If you hadn't suggested looking for Fu Qing, would this have happened? That's right, it was Peng Ziyue who suggested looking for Fu Qing in the beginning, but what happened next was completely beyond their imagination. Luo Feng, this, Fu Rui's expression was a little nervous. He didn't expect this meal to cost millions. Unless he sold his house, it would be difficult to pay off the money this time. Teacher, you don't have to worry. Nan Gong is here to pay the bill. Yun Luo Feng shrugged his shoulders as the corners of his lips curled into a smile. As for the others, since we've agreed to split the bill, I'll have to trouble all of you to pay for this meal. Lin Chi clenched his fists tightly and took a deep breath. I don't have that much money. The others were silent. If it was a few thousand, they could still pay. But this was a few million. Even if it was divided among everyone, there would still be a lot left. Where would they find the money to pay? It's not that you don't have money. Yun Luo Feng shrugged, I can let Nangong pay for you, but you need to write an IOU. If you want the debtor's name, write Fu Qing. Sister Luo Feng. Fu Qing's eyes widened and she was at a loss. This isn't good. It's okay. You have the IOU in your hand. You can ask them for a raise at any time. This money is enough for you and teacher to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. Yun Luofeng smiled. More importantly, she was leaving this place. She couldn't protect Fu Qing for the rest of her life, so she could only use this method to make everyone owe her a debt. In order to prevent Fu Qing from asking them for a debt, this group of people wouldn't bully her from now on. Fu Qing felt a little complicated. She knew that if she hadn't been so worried, Yun Luofeng wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to help her. From now on, these people wouldn't bully her anymore. Thank you, Sister Luofeng. In the end, Fu Qing still agreed to this favor. When she graduated in the future, she would repay her. Moreover, this money, she would get it back no matter what. You don't have to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank Nangong. It's his treat this time. Yun Luofeng curled his lips. Also, the date on that IOU is written 6 years. You will graduate in 3 years. You will also have 3 years to repay the debt. If you don't repay the debt in 3 years, you can only wait to be sued. Everyone's expressions were ugly, but they knew that if they didn't write this IOU, they wouldn't be able to leave Spring Garden Snow today. Therefore, they had no choice but to write an IOU. After writing the IOU, they hurriedly left. Yun Luofeng also handed the IOU to Fu Qing. If they bully you, you can find them at any time. It's getting late, let's go back. All right. Fu Qing solemnly nodded her head. Wait until she got her debt back. She would return it to Nangong Uni without leaving a single cent. When Yun Luofeng and the others walked out of Spring Garden Snow, the other students still hadn't left. However, they didn't dare to mock and ridicule them like before. They all remained silent and didn't say a word. Fu Qing, who was walking at the back of the crowd, suddenly saw a car charge towards Yun Luofeng. At this moment, everyone was a distance away from her. Even Yun Xiao was a few meters away. Careful. Fu Qing turned pale with fright and hastily shouted. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The car quickly charged in front of Yun Luofeng. Chapter 2198. Fu Rui's face was pale with fright and she couldn't even stand steadily. Fu Qing almost cried out, but just when they thought Yun Luofeng would be hit by the car this time, a miracle suddenly happened. They saw the woman in the fluttering white dress suddenly stretch out her palm and with a loud bang, the car that was originally going to hit Yun Luofeng was immediately pushed away by her and flipped upside down. Shock, everyone at the entrance of the restaurant was shocked by this move of hers. Especially Fu Qing's classmates, each and every one of them covered their mouths in shock, unable to say a single word as their bodies trembled. How was this possible? How could a human have such great power that they could even flip over a car? For a moment, everyone felt their hairs stand on end. Those who had once opposed Fu Qing were deathly pale, afraid that Yun Luofeng would remember them. Yun Xiao quickly walked to Yun Luofeng's side and examined her from head to toe. When he saw that she was safe and sound, he let out a sigh of relief. His callous gaze turned to the car that had crashed on the ground in front of him. He quickly walked forward and punched the car door. In that instant, the door immediately flew out, but there was no one in the car. Unable to find the culprit and unable to vent his anger, Yun Xiao kicked the car again. In an instant, the car was kicked 10 feet away and finally fell apart in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This husband and wife. Were they both freaks? This strength was too frightening. A driverless car. Nangong Yuni's eyes darkened. I think that someone is controlling this car from behind the scenes. They must be deliberately targeting Yun Luofeng. Looking at the wrecked car, the corners of Yun Luofeng's mouth slightly rose. Just now when we were eating, the gold-seeking rat brought the recording pen over. Are you interested in listening to it? Recording pen. Nangong Yuni was stunned. He knew that Hong Wan was suspicious of the mother and daughter and also knew that Yun Luofeng had sent the gold-seeking rat to monitor them, but he didn't think that there would be results so quickly. Thinking of this, Nangong Yuni's gaze became somewhat complicated. Logically speaking, that mother and daughter had repeatedly humiliated him. He should have wanted nothing more than for the mother and daughter to lose all their standing and reputation. However, the person they wanted to deal with was his grandfather. If it was really done by them, how disappointed would grandfather be? You don't need to worry too much, Hong Wan patted Nangong Yuni's shoulder. I can see that your grandfather doesn't like them. Since he doesn't like them, why should he be bitterly disappointed? Nangong Yuni stared blankly for a moment before nodding in realization. That's right, if I don't like him, why would I be disappointed? Hong Wan, Fallen Maple, let's go to the villa. Nangong Yuni's gaze darkened. He would never allow anyone to harm his grandfather again. Yun Luofeng nodded lightly and turned to the frightened Fu Rue. Teacher, I need to go and take care of some things. You can go back first. However, because of Nangong's matter, there has been some danger. I'll give my hamster to you. It will protect you. After saying this, Yun Luofeng took out 2 gold-seeking mice, one male and one female, and handed them to Fu Qing. If you are separated from the teacher, each of you must carry one with you. They will protect your safety. Fu Qing was astonished. She only knew that loyal dogs would protect people, but how could a hamster protect people? This kind of hamster, it seemed that if one accidentally stepped on it, they would immediately die. The gold-seeking rat sensed Fu Qing's disdain and bared its sharp teeth at her. That human-like expression scared Fu Qing. Chapter 2199. Chu Tian, Nianfeng, you two go back with teacher. Yun Luofeng pondered for a while and said, Okay. Yun Chu Tian responded obediently, his voice soft and sweet. Yun Nianfeng was a little unwilling, but after seeing Yun Luofeng's determined expression, he could only nod with grievance. Mother, I'll wait for you to come back. After throwing Yun Nianfeng and Yun Chu Tian to Fu Rue, Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao looked at each other and then turned to Nangong Yuni. Let's go. Ask your grandfather to come again. There'll be a good show soon. After saying this, her gaze seemed to subconsciously sweep to the distance, and the corners of her lips curled up. Not far away, the man hiding in the dark sensed Yun Luofeng's gaze and hurriedly turned his head back. His back involuntarily broke out in a layer of cold sweat. Finally, he gritted his teeth and dialed a number. Miyuki, this time, I was almost screwed over by you. A surprised voice came from the other side of the phone. What happened? The man pondered for a while and asked, Are you in the villa? I'll go find you now. This. Zhao Meishue was a little hesitant. That's not good. It won't be good if we're seen in broad daylight. Stop pretending. Haven't I gone to find you many times in the day? Now that the old man isn't in good health, Nangong Chuan can't leave, and your stepson is with his classmate. Lon isn't here either. What are you worried about? Hearing the man's words, Zhao Meishue hesitated for a while and gritted her teeth. Okay, come. Be careful to avoid some reporters. If their secret was exposed, she would immediately lose her reputation and Nangong Chuan wouldn't let her go. I know what I'm doing. After saying this, the man hung up the phone, ordered the driver to prepare the car, and walked down the tall building. Inside the villa, it was quiet. In order to have an affair, Xiao Meishue didn't leave any housekeepers. She even told Nangong Lan not to come back. At this moment, Xiao Meishue sat on the European-style sofa. Her heart was swollen with worry, and her eyelids were twitching violently. She felt like something was about to happen. Suddenly, there was the sound of a key opening the door. Xiao Meishue got up and looked over. When she saw the man's handsome face, her lips curled into a smile and she walked over leisurely. "You came. What happened today to make you so angry?" The man's face darkened. "You asked me to deal with that woman called Yun Luo Feng. Was that on purpose?" "What?" Xiao Meishue raised her beautiful eyes in astonishment. "What happened? Did you know that the woman pushed the car away with one punch? And the man beside her only used one kick to destroy the entire car?" The man gritted his teeth, his ashen face filled with anger. Such a person was not someone they could afford to provoke. Boom! Xiao Meishue's head exploded with a bang. Her face was pale and bloodless. She laughed dryly and said, "Did you see wrongly? Sending a car flying with a punch, is that something an ordinary person can do?" "Wrong?" The man sneered and grabbed Xiao Meishue's neck. "Are you calling me blind? How could I see wrongly?" "Xiao Meishue, what kind of enemy did you provoke? It's fine if you want to die, but why do you have to drag me down with you?" If he hadn't been vigilant and hadn't taken action himself, the outcome was clear. Chapter 2200. Xiao Meishue couldn't breathe. Her face turned the color of a pig's liver. Her hands and feet kept hitting the man, her eyes filled with fear. The man finally loosened his grip. Xiao Meishue felt that she could breathe again. Her body fell heavily to the ground. She looked a little embarrassed as she looked at the man standing in front of her. "I really don't know, humph." The man snorted. "I can help you deal with Nangong Uni, but I will never provoke that woman again. Also, after I succeed, you need to give me a sum of money. I will leave China immediately." "Okay." Xiao Meishue gritted her teeth. "I promise you." As long as she could make Nangong Uni disappear, she didn't need to care about anything else. The man's gaze swept over and saw Xiao Meishue's heaving chest. An evil light flashed in his eyes. He strode forward and lifted Xiao Meishue up. He said in a low voice, "I can't make this trip for nothing. You need to serve me. Now." Xiao Meishue was stunned. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Okay." She had to coax this man first before discussing other things with him. "Can we go to the room? Women are always troublesome." The man's voice sounded a little impatient, but he still obeyed Xiao Meishue. "Hurry up. I'll leave after we're done." Xiao Meishue smiled sweetly. She tidied up her messy hair and walked to the second floor. On the luxurious European-style bed, the man worked hard on the bed. The beautiful woman below him was drenched in sweat and panting heavily. "Hurry up. Lon will be back soon." Xiao Meishue urged anxiously when she realized that it was getting late. After the man vented, he left Xiao Meishue's body. His expression became more and more impatient. "Lon is my daughter. So what if I, as her father, see her? But Master Nangong Chuan is really stupid. He raised someone else's daughter for more than 10 years. He's so stupid. I really don't know that Nangong Group hasn't collapsed in the hands of this idiot." Xiao Meishue bit her lips. She looked at the man in front of her. "I've satisfied you. You can leave now." This time, the man didn't say anything. He walked to the door and pulled it open. Originally, Xiao Meishue wanted to go out with the man, but suddenly saw several figures standing at the door. She was so scared that she screamed, "Ah, ah, ah," at the door of the room. Old Master Nangong's face was ashen as he glared at the naked Zhao Meishue. His face was burning with rage. "Dad." Zhao Meishue's voice was anxious. She hurriedly put on her clothes and said, "Dad, listen to me." "Explain." The old man snorted coldly, his face ashen. "What else is there to explain? Yuni, call your dad now and ask him to come back and see his wife, then bring Nangong Lan back as well. Our Nangong family is not stupid enough to raise a child for someone else." Zhao Meishue's body went limp and she lay on the ground in a sorry state. If she was only caught in bed, she could still keep Nangong Lan and the Nangong family. This way, there would be hope for her to seize the family's wealth. But now, did the old man overhear their conversation in the room? How long had he been standing there for? Zhao Meishue bit her lips. Her face was pale. She hated the man beside her who also had an ugly expression. If he hadn't come to find her, how could this have happened? Chapter 2201. Nangong Chuan was dealing with important matters in the company, but he suddenly received a call from Nangong Yuni. He cursed Nangong Yuni without even thinking about it. Just as he was about to hang up, Nangong Yuni's calm voice came from the other end. "It's the old man who asked you to come to the villa. Something happened to Zhao Meishue and her daughter." Ever since Zhao Meishue entered the Nangong family, Nangong Yuni had never called her mother. He always called her by her name. Nangong Chuan was angry at first, but in the end, he got used to it. However, now that he heard something happened to Zhao Meishue and her daughter, the anger that he had yet to suppress flared up again. "Nangong Yuni, did you do something to Miyuki and Lan again? Lan is your sister, and Miyuki is your mother. It's fine if you go against them, but now you're doing something crazy." Nangong Chuan's voice was filled with anger. It was as if the person on the other end of the phone wasn't his son, but a familiar stranger. Nangong family villa. Nangong Yuni's hand that was holding the phone trembled. His face was expressionless as he hung up the phone. He looked up at the old man in front of him and said, "He'll be back soon." As long as he said something happened to Zhao Meishue, he would definitely rush back. "Hey!" The old man wasn't deaf. Naturally, he heard Nangong Chuan's anger. His expression was a little embarrassed. "Yuni, you've been wronged all these years." Nangong Chuan was too biased. He didn't even ask what happened and only blamed Nangong Yuni. How could such a father be worthy of being called a father? Nangong Yuni didn't say anything. He looked at the pale Zhao Meishue and said indifferently, "It's okay. Soon, Nangong Chuan will know that the woman he loves has made him a cuckold. Even his most beloved daughter wasn't his biological daughter, no." Zhao Meishue screamed and knelt down with a thud. She cried, "Dad, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please don't tell Chuan about this. He won't be able to take it." As his wife, no one knew that man's personality better than her. He usually doted on her, but he also had a bottom line. If he knew that she had cheated, then, he definitely wouldn't let her go. "This has nothing to do with me. I'm leaving first." The man let go of the old man and wanted to leave, but was stopped by Nangong Yuni. As Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao did not intend to get involved in the Nangong family's matters, they did not come to the villa to catch the adulterers. They only left after handing over the recording pen. Therefore, he did not see these two perverted men. When he saw that Nangong Yuni dared to stop him, he immediately kicked Nangong Yuni. But, the instant he lifted his leg, Nangong Yuni grabbed it tightly. "Did you cause Grandpa's car accident?" Also, did you control the driverless car to crash into Yun Luofeng today? The man's expression changed and he argued, I don't know what you're talking about. He didn't reveal that he had hurt old Master Nangong, so he wouldn't admit it now. Nangong Yuni saw that the man was stubborn, so he didn't say anything else. With a cold laugh, he took out a recording pen. When he pressed the button, a familiar voice came out from the pen, causing the man's face to immediately turn pale. Stupid woman. The man's expression changed. He swung his fist towards Xiao Meishue. Did you betray me? Were you the one who informed the Nangong nobles to come today? Chapter 2202. Xiao Meishue was bleeding profusely from the punch. She bit her lips tightly and didn't make a sound. At that moment, the sound of a key turning in the door lock was heard. Soon after, Nangong Chuan, who was holding a briefcase, quickly walked in. He glanced over and saw Xiao Meishue, whose face was covered in blood after being beaten by a man. He was instantly enraged and quickly rushed over. Miyuki, how are you? Are you okay? His heart ached. He raised his head and looked at Nangong Yuni in anger. Nangong Yuni, I didn't expect you to be so bold. You dared to find someone to beat up your mother. I'm going to call the police to arrest you. From now on, I, Nangong Chuan, don't have a son like you. When Nangong Chuan said this, no one stopped him. They only listened quietly. However, the old man's face was filled with disappointment. He was already thoroughly disappointed with this son of his. If you weren't Nangong's father, I wouldn't have been polite to you. Hong Wuan clenched her fists tightly. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. He found someone to beat up his mother. You still have the ability to not be polite to me. Nangong Chuan sneered and helped Xiao Meishue up from the ground. He felt Xiao Meishue's trembling body. He thought that she had suffered a great shock. His heart instantly ached again. Ever since Miyuki married him, she hadn't enjoyed a single good day. When she was in the old mansion, she had to watch her father's face. When she moved out of the old mansion, this group of people still came to bully her. Did they really think that he, Nangong Chuan, wouldn't be angry? Nangong Chuan, the old man sneered. Who would blame their own son so indiscriminately? You haven't even asked clearly and you think that he's in the wrong. Is there a father like you? Dad, don't speak up for this little bastard. He brought people to our door and even caused Miyuki to suffer such serious injuries. I won't let him off so easily today. Nangong Chuan was so angry that he wanted to beat up Nangong Yuni. However, the old man stood in front of him. If you dare to touch Yuni, you'll have to touch this old man first. At this moment, the old man's face was filled with anger. His clenched fists were trembling slightly. Dad! Nangong Chuan shouted in disbelief. This bastard has already done such a thing, and you still want to protect him? The old man smiled coldly. If Yuni really hit her, then she deserved it. All these years, she's cheated on you so many times. Even the daughter you've doted on for so many years isn't your own. Now, you're having an affair with your lover in the villa that my Nangong family bought with money. She even schemed for the assets of our Nangong family. Do you think she deserves a beating? Xiao Meishue's body trembled even more violently. She didn't even dare to say a word. She kept her head lowered, hiding the despair in her eyes. Dad, what are you saying? Nangong Chuan was rather angry. Miyuki isn't such a person. Initially, when I approached her, she thought that I was poor and didn't know that I was the CEO of the Nangong family. How could such a beautiful woman like her scheme against my property? This doesn't seem like Nangong Yuni's mother. Didn't she marry me for my identity? Pa! The old man was so angry that he slapped Nangong Chuan's face. Tears streamed down his old face. Ling Er is my comrade's daughter. Back then, that comrade owed me a favor. He wanted to repay me in other ways. It was me. It was me who was so stupid that I actually asked for his daughter to be my daughter-in-law. Chapter 2203. Actually, in the beginning, they were unwilling. However, I really liked that girl, so I shamelessly asked for this marriage for you. But you made me feel ashamed to face my comrades. You also made me feel ashamed to face that girl after I die. Tears streamed down Master Nangong's face as his entire body trembled in anger. If I had known that you were such an animal, I would never have married that girl to you. Before Zhao Meishu appeared, Nangong Chuan had been a good son. He was obedient and sensible. When he had suggested for Nangong Chuan to marry that girl, he had agreed. He had thought that Nangong Chuan would treat that girl well. Who knew that he would let her down after Zhao Meishu appeared? If Zhao Meishu had been a good woman, perhaps he would not have been so resistant. Unfortunately, he had seen through Zhao Meishu's nature from the beginning. Unfortunately, his son did not believe him. How could he accept this? You don't believe us, do you? Fine, I'll give you the recording pen. Master Nangong stretched out his trembling hands and threw the recording pen to Nangong Chuan. Nangong Chuan's eyes flashed with suspicion. In the end, he could not resist his curiosity and pressed the button. In an instant, the woman's familiar voice echoed in the empty villa. I miss you. Also, that damned old man isn't dead. A young lady named Yun Luofeng saved him. I want you to help me create another accident. This time, I don't believe that he won't die. I don't care, you must help me. Even if it's not for me, it's for our daughter. Could you bear to see her being bullied by that brat Nangong Uni in the Nangong family? As long as the old man is dead, I will deal with Nangong Chuan. So what? I only want the Nangong family's wealth. What happens to others has nothing to do with me. Besides, the person I love has always been you. If it wasn't for the Nangong family, why would I have chosen to marry Nangong Chuan? After all, you are the only man I have ever loved. Isn't what's mine yours? Nangong Chuan and Zhao Meishu had shared a bed for many years. How could he not recognize her voice? He gripped the recording pen in his hand tightly. His eyes were bloodshot as he raised his head and stared coldly at Zhao Meishu. Are you telling the truth? You're marrying me just for the Nangong family's wealth. He couldn't believe that the person who slept with him could be so vicious. Zhao Meishu's lips were deathly pale. She took 2 steps forward and tried to hold Nangong Chuan's hand, but Nangong Chuan flung her away. Don't touch me with your dirty hands. No, hubby, listen to my explanation. Zhao Meishu's face was full of panic, and her tears fell silently. Nangong Chuan took a deep breath and suppressed the pain in his chest. All right, I'll give you a chance to explain. Facing all of this, Nangong Uni could only sneer mockingly from the side. Just now, Nangong Chuan had accused him indiscriminately. Now that the evidence was conclusive, he still wanted to deceive himself and give Zhao Meishu a chance to explain herself. These two people really loved each other. And they were the villains who tore apart this pair of true love. Hong Wuan couldn't stand it anymore. She kindly reminded him, it's already a fact that your daughter isn't your biological daughter. There's no use in your explanation. We can do a blood test. Darling, Nangong Uni hugged Hong Wuan's waist and smiled. There's no blood test now, only a paternity test. Chapter 2204. Zhao Meishua's body gradually collapsed. Nangong Yuni was right, there was still a DNA test. How could she deny it? A DNA test would be able to prove that Nangong Lan was not her daughter. Hubby, I know I was wrong. Zhao Meishue tugged at Nangong Chuan's sleeve and cried, I was blinded by greed, that's why I made a mistake. I really love you, you must believe me. Nangong Chuan's face turned from green to white, then from white to green. He clenched his fists tightly. You mean, these things are all true, you made me a cuckold and the one I've doted on for more than 10 years isn't my daughter. Hubby, please forgive me, I know I was wrong. Zhao Meishue hugged Nangong Chuan's thigh tightly, just give me one more chance, I will definitely not make a mistake again. Bitch. Nangong Chuan grabbed Zhao Meishue's hair and slammed her head against the wall. I've treated you well, I even forced my wife to death for you. How dare you make me a cuckold, I'm going to kill you, you bitch. At that moment, Nangong Chuan's eyes were bloodshot as he angrily slammed Zhao Meishue's head. Zhao Meishue's head was soon bleeding and blood flowed all over the floor. Enough. Seeing Nangong Chuan's actions, Master Nangong bellowed angrily, do you really want to kill her? If you kill her, you'll be shot yourself. Divorce her immediately and hand her over to the police. Let the police handle her for murder. She can forget about leaving prison for the rest of her life. This was attempted murder. If he found someone to say a few words, it would be normal for him to be sentenced to life imprisonment. Nangong Chuan's body went limp and he collapsed to the floor. He clutched his head in pain. What had he done all these years? Ah! Suddenly, a shrill scream came from downstairs. By the time everyone reacted, Nangong Lan had already rushed up. When she saw Zhao Meishue lying in a pool of blood, her eyes were filled with anger. Dad, why is Mom so heavily injured? Who hurt her? I hurt her. Nangong Chuan clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were still bloodshot and filled with anger. Daddy! Nangong Lan screamed in disbelief. Why did you hurt Mother? Why did you do this? You heartless. Pa! Before she could finish her sentence, Nangong Chuan slapped her across the face. Nangong Lan opened her eyes wide in shock. All these years, her father had never lifted a finger, and now he actually hit her. Could it be that he had a mistress and abandoned them? You dare to scold me? Your mother is the real bitch. She made me a cuckold. Nangong Chuan's eyes were bloodshot. His gaze slowly turned towards the man beside him. This man is your real father. Don't call me that in the future, I find it disgusting. When Nangong Chuan heard the recording, he already knew that the naked man in front of him was Zhao Meishue's adulterer. He was Nangong Lan's real father. Sure enough, after hearing this, Nangong Lan's eyes immediately widened. What did you say? That's impossible. I'm the daughter of the Nangong family. I'm not the daughter of this wild man. This is your mother admitting it herself. You're her bastard child after she had an affair. Nangong Chuan gritted his teeth and his knuckles cracked. He used all his strength to control himself from throwing a punch at Nangong Lan. Chapter 2205. Nangong Lan felt as if she had stepped on the sky. She staggered and fell to the ground with a bang. Her face was deathly pale. She wasn't her father's daughter. She was just a product of an affair. No. Oh. Nangong Lan went completely crazy. She rushed towards Zhao Meishue, who was also paralyzed on the ground. Tell me that none of this is true. I am the eldest daughter of the Nangong family. I am not a bastard. Zhao Meishue's throat was choked. She knew that everything was over. Tell me that Nangong Chuan is my father. Hurry. Faced with Nangong Lan's heart-wrenching scream, Xiao Meishue closed her eyes helplessly. Her face was covered with tears. Nangong Lan staggered again. She let go of Xiao Meishue. She laughed and said in a despairing tone, I don't have a mother like you anymore. She glared at Xiao Meishue fiercely and turned to leave the villa. Before she left, she glanced at Nangong Yuni and Hong Wan. Wait! Nangong Yuni shouted coldly. Nangong Lan stopped in her tracks. She choked and said, What else do you want? Now that the Nangong family has been snatched away by you, are you still not satisfied? Firstly, I am the rightful successor of the Nangong family. What do you mean by snatched away by me? Secondly, you also participated in the plot to kill grandfather. What? At this moment, everyone's eyes turned to Nangong Yuni. Even the old man was in disbelief. It was understandable that Xiao Meishue wanted to harm him. However, even though he was biased towards Nangong Yuni, he had never mistreated Nangong Lan. After all, she was part of the Nangong family's bloodline. Furthermore, based on the situation just now, Nangong Lan didn't know that she was an illegitimate daughter. If that was the case, why did she want to harm him? The recording just now was only part of it. There was another part before that. Nangong Yuni laughed coldly and rewound the recording. Two voices could be heard in the empty villa. Mom, why is that old thing not dead yet? Did the people you sent not hit him hard enough? Logically speaking, such heavy injuries shouldn't be able to heal. Who is that Yun Luofeng? How did you manage to save the heavily injured old man? I know Yun Luofeng. She's also a rather famous student of Huaxia University. It's said that she also went missing in the explosion 5 years ago. I didn't expect her to come back with Nangong Yuni. There was more conversation after that, but no one was in the mood to listen to it. Their faces were ugly, and the entire villa was silent. Nangong Lan's body began to tremble, and her face became even paler. She widened her beautiful eyes in fear as she looked at Nangong Yuni. Bitch! Nangong Chuan was the first to regain his senses. With a roar, he charged in front of Nangong Lan and slapped her face, causing her to fall to the ground. Blood trickled down from the corner of her mouth, and her head was buzzing. She could not come back to her senses at all. How could this be? How could Nangong Yuni have a recording of her conversation with Nyangqin? Impossible, this is impossible. Suddenly, Nangong Lan crawled up as if she had gone mad. She screamed and pounced towards Nangong Yuni, it must be you. Nangong Yuni, you must have snuck the recording pen into the villa. I want you to die a horrible death. Bang! Unfortunately, before she could reach Nangong Yuni, she was sent flying by a kick from Nangong Yuni. Her body rolled on the ground a few times before stopping, but she no longer had the strength to get up. Chapter 2206. Yuni, call the police. After saying this, the old man closed his eyes. Even Nangong Chuan didn't stop him. Nangong Yuni looked at Xiao Meishue and her daughter, who were paralyzed on the ground, and dialed the police number without hesitation. Then, he walked out with Hong Wan. Yun Luofeng was still waiting for them. From afar, Nangong Yuni could see the man and woman standing under the tree. The two of them were as beautiful as a painting, quiet and distant, completely out of place in this noisy environment. Yun Luofeng. He stopped in his tracks and looked at the woman in front of him. A trace of absent-mindedness flashed in his eyes. If it wasn't for Yun Luofeng, perhaps, he wouldn't have been able to take down Xiao Meishue and her daughter so easily. Let's go. Yun Luofeng shrugged, a smile on his lips. Yun Xiao stood by her side, his gaze on the woman. In the entire world, she was the only one there. Alright, I've already found out where Shuedong's pharmacy is. Nangong Yuni raised his eyebrows, as if thinking of an old friend. A trace of a smile appeared in his handsome eyes. Shui family's pharmacy. A bookworm wearing square glasses was sitting behind the counter in boredom. The entire pharmacy seemed very quiet and desolate. No one had stepped in the entire day. The bookworm sighed and raised his head to look at the quiet pharmacy with a bitter smile on his face. The competition is too intense now. It seems like this pharmacy won't be able to continue. Just as the bookworm finished speaking, he suddenly saw someone walk in. He hurriedly stood up to welcome them. What medicinal herbs are you looking to buy? What? It's been 5 years. Bookworm, don't you recognize us? The familiar voice made the bookworm raise his head in surprise. When he saw the familiar face in front of him, he suddenly froze. You are Nangong Yuni. Not just me, there's also Yun Luofeng. Nangong Yuni laughed heartily and said. Although they weren't classmates with the bookworm, they were still friends. Back then, before they left, they had many meals together. Although their relationship wasn't iron, it was still worth befriending. Bookworm rubbed his eyes and a look of surprise flashed across his gentle face. He looked at the beautiful woman beside him and said with a trembling voice, You didn't die. That's for sure. Right, let me introduce you. This is my wife, Hong Luan. The other is Yun Luofeng's husband, Yun Shao. The bookworm was even more shocked. The two of them had disappeared for 5 years. Who would have thought that they would find a partner when they came back? Nangong, you talk to him first. Yun Shao and I will take a break first. Yun Luofeng minded her own business and poured a cup of tea for herself and Yun Shao, then casually sat down. She had already explained the following matters to Nangong Yuni, so Nangong Yuni should know how to handle it. Shuedong, how have you been these past few years? Nangong Yuni hooked his arm around Shuedong's shoulder and asked. Shuedong smiled bitterly. After graduation, I listened to my father and inherited the pharmacy. But now there are too many pharmacies, and the pressure of competition is too great. I can't make ends meet. By the way, what happened to you back then? Isn't he dead? Have you seen our bodies? Nangong Yuni rolled his eyes. Yes, he was dead. But his body had also disappeared. So, now that he had appeared, he couldn't possibly admit to this problem. This time, Yun Luofeng and I came to help you. Nangong Yuni curled his lips and smiled handsomely. Chapter 2207. Help me. Shuedong was dumbfounded. How were they going to help him? Yun Luofeng has some special herbs. If you take them out, how long will it take for you to become number 1 in China? What? Shuedong didn't understand what this meant. For example, there's a medicine that can increase a person's strength. A weak person can instantly become 100 times stronger. For example, if you catch a cold, a stock of medicine can immediately cure you without any side effects. Also, if you're stabbed, as long as you're breathing, you can be saved. Yun Luofeng's medicine seemed to have this effect. Oh, right, there were many that helped people cultivate. Unfortunately, there were no cultivators in China, so those medicine were naturally useless. As for what Shuedong said, he could have as many as he wanted. Boom! Shuedong's head was about to explode. Was there really such a magical medicine in the world? Why hadn't he heard of it before? If there really is such a medicine, I reckon it can become number 1 in China in less than 10 years. 10 years. Yun Luofeng slowly stood up from the chair. That's too long. I can't wait that long. 1 year. In 1 year, I want this pharmacy to become #1 in China. This. Shui Dong was conflicted. 1 year was too short. He didn't have much confidence. Moreover, this kind of magical medicine definitely needed to be appraised before it could be sold. Just this alone would take a month. Thinking of this, Shui Dong spoke his mind. Certificate. That's no problem. I'll get my grandfather to help me get it. The country doesn't have to worry about it. With Nangong Yin's guarantee, Shui Dong heaved a sigh of relief. I'll try. Okay. Yun Luofeng curled his lips. Change the pharmacy's name to Miracle Doctor Pharmacy. We only sell Chinese medicine, not Western medicine. In reality, Yun Luofeng had no feelings for Western medicine. She felt that with China's 5,000 years of history and the ancient Huatua, how could Western medicine compare to Chinese medicine? Unfortunately, Chinese medicine had declined. Nowadays, there were too few people who could truly learn Chinese medicine. That was why Chinese medicine couldn't compare to Western medicine. Therefore, when Yun Luofeng was in Huaxia University, his course was Chinese medicine. Also, you'll be the manager of this pharmacy. My teacher, Fu Rui, was once a Chinese medicine professor at China University. Hire him to manage the pharmacy. Both of your salaries will be 10% of the pharmacy's shares. Shui Dong hurriedly nodded. He had heard of Fu Rui's name when he was in university. Unfortunately, it was exposed that he had forced a female student to leave the university. However, his medical skills were very high. Later, Nangong will bring the herbs to be appraised. Once we have the certificate, the pharmacy will immediately open for business. A cold light flashed across Yun Luofeng's eyes. There was another reason why she used this method to earn money, and that was because her so-called uncle opened a pharmaceutical company. He even cooperated with several major hospitals. Then today, she would make sure that his company could not continue to operate. She wanted him to pay back what he owed her. A year passed in a flash. During this year, Yun Luofeng didn't just stay in Huaxia. She would occasionally return to the 7 continents to stay for a while. Ever since she found out about the passage between the 2 continents, she could come and go as she pleased. Of course, there was a specific reason why she wanted to open the passage. That was, only someone who was a true god could open the passage. Chapter 2208. Yun Medicine Factory. In a luxurious office, Yun Tianqi slammed the documents in his hand on the desk and looked at the person standing in front of him with an ashen face. Why is the performance so bad this year? It's not even 1/10 of the previous years. President, a place called the Miracle Doctor Medicine Hall has appeared recently. Many people are going there because of its reputation. Even those with minor colds don't go to the hospital anymore. However, our medicine company only works with the hospital. Now that the hospital is not doing well, our performance has declined. The marketing department head is a middle-aged woman wearing a pair of black glasses. She rubbed her eyes and said seriously. In the past year, Yun Tianqi had hired a mistress and kept it a secret from his wife. Why would he care about the company's affairs? Miracle Doctor Medicine Hall. Yun Tianqi sneered. I can tell that it's a deceptive pharmacy. There are actually people who believe it. Where did the Miracle Doctor come from? I'm going to expose the true face of the Miracle Doctor Medicine Hall now. Yun Tianqi stood up angrily and walked out of the office quickly. Miracle Doctor Medicine Hall. Ever since the business license was issued a year ago, the medicine hall was deserted for a period of time. After all, no one believed in the name of the Miracle Doctor. However, it just so happened that Elder Nangong's old comrade's grandson was injured by a gunshot. It was extremely dangerous. Elder Nangong remembered the existence of the godly Dr. Medicine Hall and hurriedly came to ask for a spirit medicine to save his comrade's life. The operation to remove the bullet was dangerous and could easily cost the life. However, because of the existence of the spiritual medicine, the grandson of the old comrade survived unscathed. Since then, the miracle Dr. Medicine Hall became famous everywhere. In addition, the spiritual medicine that could strengthen one's body was sought after by thousands of people. However, not long after, some of the powerful spiritual medicine that could strengthen one's body was no longer sold. The reason was that Yun Luofeng had provided those spiritual medicine to the country. When Yun Luofeng transmigrated to the Roaring Dragon continent, she did not care about the continent at all. That was because she did not have any sense of belonging to the continent. However, China was different. This was the place where she was born and raised. It was obvious that her feelings for China were not ordinary. If they had those elixirs, China's army would become even stronger, and foreign enemies would no longer be able to invade. Elder Nangong was very grateful for Yun Luofeng's actions, and the country's leaders were even more excited. In addition, Elder Nangong mentioned Yun Luofeng's strength, so the country's leaders directly gave her the title of Major General. If Huaxia had such a powerhouse, why would it not grow stronger? It was also because of the strong support from the country that the miracle Dr. Medicine Hall could develop so quickly. There were even some international friends who came because of its fame. At this moment, outside the medicine hall, the people who came to seek medical advice had formed a long line. No one argued, they were all waiting quietly. From afar, Yun Tianqi saw the long line of people. He frowned and wanted to cut through the line. Why did you cut the queue? His behavior angered an old man. The old man looked at him angrily and said, "Can't you see that we're all lining up here? If you want to ask for medicine, hurry up and line up at the back. Don't disturb us." Yun Tianqi's expression changed. "Sir, just by hearing the name of this medicine hall, I can tell that it's a scam. So many of you are willing to be scammed." The old man looked at Yun Tianqi disdainfully. "Young man, have you seen the news? This medicine hall is very famous. It can even cure cancer patients. The country's leaders are especially fond of it. It can even cure cancer." What a joke. Yun Tianqi smiled mockingly. "Sir, you must have been scammed. I'm sure that this medicine hall is a scam." Chapter 2209. He originally thought that the people around him would definitely feel curious and ask him about it. At that time, he could casually make up some scandalous information to make everyone suspicious. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, the strong man next to him pushed him hard and said angrily, "Get out of here if you don't want to see a doctor. Don't waste our time." That's right. How dare you frame the immortal medicine hall when you don't even know the situation? Just go back and watch the news. I think I've seen this guy before. By the way, I remember now. He's the president of the Yun Medical Company. I heard that the Yun Medical Company's benefits have been declining recently. Could it be that the president deliberately framed us to gain benefits? Ha ha ha. One of the onlookers recognized Yun Tianqi and immediately mocked him. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Yun Tianqi's face, which made him feel like his face was on fire. I can't believe he's the president of the Yun family. I remember that I took the Yun family's medicine from the hospital at that time. Not only did I not get better, but it also caused inflammation. It's useless to complain. The Yun family's medicine is rubbish. I'll never use the medicine made by the Yun family again. I don't want to die from it. Their words made Yun Tianqi's face even more unsightly. He desperately pushed the people in front of him away and quickly fled not far away. When he returned to the Yun family, he immediately called for a meeting and asked all the senior executives to attend. At the moment, Yun Tianqi was a little angry in the meeting room. He swept the crowd with his sharp eyes and shouted angrily, "Why didn't anyone tell me that such a big thing happened to the Yun family? If it weren't for the year-end audit, he wouldn't have known that the Yun family's performance this year was so bad." The senior executives looked at each other. They had told Yun Tianqi, but he had been obsessed with a woman for the past year and had sex with her every day. How could he care about the Yun family's affairs? Moreover, Yun Tianqi had thought that the Yun family could enjoy life without any worries now that it had developed so much. He had never thought that someone would be able to push the Yun family down. A middle-aged man walked out and said, "President, I think our top priority now is to restore our reputation." Yun Tianqi fell silent. He was able to develop the Yun family to where it was today because of the wealth left behind by Yun Luofeng's parents and the strength of Li Tsui's family. More importantly, he was not stupid. If he hadn't been addicted to beauty, he wouldn't have allowed others to take advantage of the opportunity to destroy the Yun family. Actually, this medicinal hall has a very high reputation. However, it has only been developed for a year. It can't be compared to the financial resources of our Yun family. The middle-aged man smiled. "So, I suggest that you buy the Miracle Doctor's medicinal hall." Yun Tianqi's eyes darkened. "What is the identity of the boss of the Miracle Doctor Pharmacy?" "I've already looked into this. The boss is just a student who graduated from a Chinese university. His family is very ordinary, and his ancestors opened a pharmacy. As for the doctor in charge of the pharmacy, he is the famous Professor Fu Ru." Professor Fu Ru. Yun Tianqi's lips curled into a sneer. Back then, when he chased Yun Luofeng away to an orphanage, it was this old man who took her in. Don't be in a hurry to buy it. Go spread the news that the doctor in the pharmacy was suspected of raping a female student. With such an immoral doctor, will the pharmacy still have any reputation to speak of? At that time, he would act as a savior and buy the pharmacy. The boss of the pharmacy would definitely be very grateful to him. Chapter 22:10. Yes, CEO. Soon, the meeting ended. Everyone went back to their own duties. No one talked about the contents of the meeting anymore. However, a few days later, a piece of news instantly spread across the headlines of various newspapers. Professor Fu Ru of Huaxia University is suspected of sexually abusing a female student and has been expelled from the university. He is now the chief physician of the Miracle Doctor's Medicine Hall. Is the character of such a doctor reliable? Can you still buy medicine from the medicine hall without worry? Once the news was reported, it spread by word of mouth. Hence, the already bustling Miracle Doctor's Medicine Hall suddenly became even more crowded. Countless reporters surrounded the entrance, blocking the road tightly. At this moment, in the medicine hall, Xue Dong was sweating profusely. If it wasn't for a few people working in the medicine hall blocking them, the group of reporters would have already rushed in. Even so, Xue Dong still heard the sharp voices of the reporters in the medicine hall. "Boss Xue, why did your medicine hall hire such a person with no medical ethics to be the chief physician? I seriously suspect that there's a problem with the quality of the medicinal herbs in your medicine hall. Someone who even dares to sexually abuse a student, how can he be a good chief physician? Please give us an explanation, and also give the people an explanation." In the medicine hall, Fu Ru's lips kept trembling. He wanted to stand up and leave several times, but he was firmly held down by Xue Dong. "Teacher, you mustn't go. These people are waiting for you to go out. Sit here for now. I've already called Yun Luofeng. She'll think of a way." In the past year, the medicinal hall had experienced countless storms, but he had managed to walk through all of them safely. But now, such a serious problem had occurred, and he was no longer able to control the situation. He had no choice but to find Yun Luofeng. Excuse me. At this moment, a young voice suddenly came from outside the crowd. Perhaps the voice was very childish, but it made the reporters turn their heads in surprise. Behind the crowd, two little children who looked like they were carved from jade walked over hand in hand. These two children were very beautiful, so beautiful that it made people forget about the problems in an instant. Seeing that the two little fellows were about to enter the medicine hall, a reporter quickly stopped them. Don't you know that there's a problem with this medicine hall? Yun Yanfeng looked up at the female reporter and said expressionlessly, "What does it have to do with you that I want to go in?" You. The female reporter was so angry that her face was ashen. This little guy was so beautiful, but he had no manners. She immediately gritted her teeth. I have good intentions, but you are so rude. Let me tell you, the medicine in this pharmacy is poisonous. If you want your whole family to die, you can go in and eat it. Originally, it was just because of the rumor that Fu Ru was a teacher, but now it had become that the herbs in the pharmacy were poisoned. He even cursed Yun Yanfeng's entire family to die. Yun Yanfeng stopped in his tracks and turned to look at the female reporter. I don't have manners, but do you? The pharmacy is a business. Is it polite for you to block someone else's door and speak rudely? You keep saying that the medicinal herbs are poisonous. If I take a bite now and I don't die, will you die? Yun Yanfeng wasn't polite to such a vicious person. There was a sneer on his face. Big brother, mother said that there's no need to be polite to such people. If they don't want to leave, then beat them up. Yun Chu Tian blinked his big eyes and turned to look at the group of reporters. Also, mother said that 3 days later, she will clear Grand Master Fu Ru's name. Of course, these things are only explained to the people who come to the medicine hall to buy medicine, not to these reporters. Chapter 22:11. The group of reporters was annoyed by Yun Chu Tian, especially the female reporter who started the fight. Her face had already turned ashen as she looked at the two children angrily. Two wimpy brats are spouting nonsense here. You want to chase us away? Where are your parents? Ask your parents to come out. Brother. Yun Chu Tian pursed his lips and turned to look at Yun Yanfeng. Whoosh. At that moment, the female reporter felt a gust of wind blow past her, and the beautiful boy in luxurious clothes had disappeared without a trace. Just as she was about to look for him, Yun Yanfeng had already appeared behind her and kicked the female reporter, sending her flying. Ah! Everyone was frightened and screamed. A group of reporters quickly took out their cameras and started taking pictures. It was obvious that there would be another headline tomorrow. The son of the miracle doctor's medicine hall boss publicly beat up a reporter. However, Yun Yanfeng didn't care so much. Grandmaster Fu Ru's injustice would be cleared sooner or later. As for the female reporter, it was time for his mother to check her identity. If she was just a reporter, she wouldn't be so aggressive. She wasn't just a simple reporter. Ignoring the crowd behind him, Yun Yanfeng walked into the medicine hall. His delicate face revealed a smile as he walked towards Fu Ru. Grandmaster, mother is asking you to go back for dinner. Fu Ru was stunned. He looked at the reporters outside the door and finally nodded. Okay. He stood up from the chair and mustered his courage to walk out the door. When he walked to the door, the reporters all reacted and quickly took pictures of his old and dispirited appearance. Some reporters wanted to go up and make things difficult for him, but they remembered Yun Yanfeng's kick just now, and their thoughts were immediately extinguished. Fu Ru heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the reporters didn't surround him. He quickly passed through the crowd and walked towards the car behind the crowd. At this moment, Yun Xiao had just prepared the food and placed it on the table when Fu Ru walked in from outside. As soon as he stepped into the house, he smelled the aroma of the food and swept away the haze from before. Luo Feng, your husband's cooking is very good. Ugh. Fu Ru was sincerely happy for Yun Luo Feng. This man was not only very powerful, but he also had excellent cooking skills. Even the chefs in five-star restaurants were far inferior to him. Most importantly, he was obedient. If Yun Luo Feng told him to go east, he wouldn't go west. If Yun Luo Feng told him to chase a cat, he wouldn't chase a dog. There were very few outstanding and obedient men in this world. The only flaw was that he was too quiet. Of course, this kind of reticence was only seen by others. In front of Yun Luo Feng, he never stopped smiling. Even if he didn't speak, his eyes seemed to be talking to her. Nianfeng, how is it? Yun Luo Feng raised his brows and looked at Yun Nianfeng. Yun Nianfeng pouted. Mother, those reporters are too despicable. They even cursed me. I think it's better for us to just kill them. The corner of Fu Ru's mouth twitched. Fortunately, after a year, he was already used to Yun Nianfeng's shocking words. This is China. Bai Yan glanced at Yun Nianfeng. You can't kill people casually, understand? Oh. Yun Nianfeng nodded unwillingly. He still preferred the Seven Continents continent. In a place where strength reigned supreme, the fist was the strongest. Unlike Huaxia, where life was too stifling. Chapter 22:12. Don't worry. Yun Luo Feng raised his hand and hugged Yun Nianfeng's body. The corners of his lips curved. Very soon, everything will be over. Fu Ru opened her mouth to say something, but it turned into a sigh in the end. Luo Feng, I've implicated you in this matter. Teacher, I came back this time to resolve this matter. Also, I've already guessed who did this to the miracle Dr. Medicine Hall. Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed. This matter would be over soon. It wouldn't be long before those people would get their retribution. However, you have to tell me exactly what happened back then. Only then can I find evidence for you. Yun Luo Feng quickly regained his composure and asked faintly. Fu Ru's eyes were a little complicated. That girl back then was indeed one of my students. Her family was rather poor, so I usually sponsored her to go to school. Yun Luo Feng was silent. Her teacher had indeed been sponsoring some poor students for many years. She knew about this 5 years ago. Unfortunately, I didn't know her well enough. Ever since she entered the university, she became vain, and for the sake of money, she even did shameful things. Fu Ru's expression was a little helpless, but it was more of a heartache. How could he not be distressed when something like this happened to the student he had been sponsoring? After I found out about this, I also said a few words to her, but she didn't listen to me at all. She even asked me for money. Money? Yun Luo Feng glanced at Fu Ru. Continue. She liked a car and didn't have enough money to borrow it from me. I didn't lend it to her, so she said that she wanted to ruin my reputation. I originally thought that she was just saying it casually, but one day, she suddenly told me that she had turned over a new leaf and had some questions about her studies that she wanted to ask me. I believed her, so I went to see her. For convenience's sake, we arranged to meet in the school's laboratory, but by then, classes had already ended. I asked her if she had any questions about the experiment, but she asked me for money again. This time, she told me that she had borrowed money from a high-interest loan shark and that if she didn't return the money, she would be beaten to death. I didn't believe her anymore, so I turned to leave. Who knew that she would suddenly drag her clothes and shout for help? As for the chat records, they were all fake. Hearing Fu Rui's words, Yun Luo Feng stroked her chin. She looked at Yun Xiao, who was next to her, and then turned her gaze to Fu Rui. I understand, I'll resolve this matter, don't worry. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. However, do you know where that student is now? Fu Rui nodded. She was a freshman when the incident happened, and now she's a senior. I don't know her home address, but it should be in the school's file. I'll ask someone I know to get the file. No. Yun Luofeng shook his head. It's good that she's here. I'll find the file. T Fu Rui. T Foot. T Worry. T Fu Luo Foot S said. Yun Luofeng didn't reply to Fu Rui's question. She raised her eyes and stared at Fu Rui with her clean and clear eyes, causing Fu Rui's heart to tremble. Innocence. For many years, he had carried this stain on his body, causing him to be despised by everyone. But now, Yun Luofeng was telling him that he could recover his innocence. Chapter 22:13. Alright, I believe you. He believed her. Just because this girl was his student, Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao looked at each other, their lips curling into a smile. Yun Xiao, let's go. Soon, things will be over here. Fu Ru stared at the two of them in a daze. By the time he regained his senses, the two of them had already disappeared. Every student would leave a file in the school, and on this file, there would definitely be their address. With Yun Luofeng and Yun Zhao's abilities, they could come and go as they pleased in the archives. Soon, they found the address. What she didn't expect was that this girl called Lin Qing lived in the same district as Yun Luofeng's apartment. She walked into the district with familiarity and quickly found Lin Qing's address. At that moment, in Lin Qing's apartment, an erotic drama was playing out on the sofa. Among the two, the woman had short hair and sparkling earrings on her ears. Her figure was excellent and her skin was incomparably smooth. However, the dark circles around her eyes ruined her beauty. The man was also a delinquent, with a head of dazzling yellow hair. He lay on the girl's body, exercising with all his might. His back was covered in sweat, and his hair stuck tightly to his forehead. After a long time, the two of them finally stopped. The girl lay on the man's body, panting, her face full of pleasure. Brother Huang, we've spent all the money that the boss gave us. When the time comes, I'll extort some more money from him to support our living expenses. The yellow-haired man was a little surprised. It's been a few years, how are we going to extort him? You don't know this, but when he asked me to frame teacher Fu Ru, I secretly recorded it so that I could continue to extort from him in the future. Lin Qing's face lit up with a smug smile as she said this. The yellow-haired man lit a cigarette. You're really ruthless. You even framed the teacher who helped you go to school. Pfft, Lin Qing sneered disdainfully. He only sponsored me for a few years, and it was only a few tens of thousands of dollars. It's not that big of a favor. He, on the other hand, is not human at all. We've known each other for a few years, and I was being chased by loan sharks. I asked him to help me, but he refused no matter what. Her eyes flashed with hatred. If it wasn't for the fact that he refused to help me, I wouldn't have helped others frame him. You have to know that the boss gave me a few million. After I've repaid a few 100,000, I still have a few million to support my life. Only a fool wouldn't want such a big benefit. However, fortunately, she was smart. She was afraid that the boss would not admit it, so she buried the crime of asking her to plot against Fu Ru and told him that she had given the crime to a friend. If the boss refused to pay and wanted to silence him, the crime would be exposed. Therefore, the boss gave her another 1 million yuan on top of the original amount. When she thought of her own intelligence, Lin Qing was filled with pride. As for framing Fu Ru, he reaped what he sowed and could not blame anyone else. It was his fault for not lending her money to repay the loan sharks. Little Qing, I knew you had a backup plan. Now, we can live without worries for the rest of our lives. As soon as he heard that he could continue extorting, the yellow-haired man's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but exercise hard again. Money was really a good thing. It could make people ungrateful and betray their benefactors, and it could also make people crazy. Chapter 22:14. Who is it? Suddenly, Lin Qing seemed to have sensed some movement and immediately raised her head to look. In an instant, she saw a woman standing under the moonlight and staring at her with a smile. Beside the woman was a handsome man. This man's face was very cold. He didn't even turn his head, leaving only his side profile. But this side profile was enough to stun anyone. Who are you? Why are you at my house? At this time, Lin Qing couldn't care less about being shocked. Her eyes were full of fear, and her voice was trembling. Yun Luofeng waved the phone in his hand and said with a smile, "I've recorded your conversation just now. By the way, can you tell me who your boss is?" Hearing this, panic flashed in Lin Qing's eyes. She hurriedly covered her body with a thin sheet, her eyes full of fear. "Who are you?" Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. "Fu Ru is my teacher. Fu Ru is my teacher." Boom! At that moment, Lin Qing's face turned deathly pale, and her entire body trembled. "Are you here to find evidence for Fu Ru?" No, I can't give you that evidence. Hurry and snatch his phone." The man who had been lying on top of Lin Qing immediately reacted and hurriedly got up. His naked body could be seen clearly. Luckily, the moment he got up, Yun Luofeng had already closed her eyes. Seeing this, the yellow-haired man laughed coldly in his heart. He quickly rushed towards Yun Luofeng and raised his hand to snatch the phone from her hand. Unfortunately, before he could get close to Yun Luofeng, the man who had been facing him didn't even look at him. With a boom, a force rushed out, and the yellow-haired man's body was immediately sent flying. He kept vomiting blood. "Ah!" Seeing this strange scene, Lin Qing screamed, "Ghost! Have you ever seen a living person who can send another person flying without even moving? Apart from the fact that there was a ghost next to him. You still want to snatch my phone?" Yun Luofeng's lips curled up, and his smile deepened. "Tell me, who made you frame my teacher?" Lin Qing's mind went blank, and her eyes became dizzy. Just as she was about to faint, she could feel a force controlling her nerves, making her mind extremely clear. This knowledge made Lin Qing even more terrified. I don't know who she is. I only know that the boss is a woman." "Women?" Yun Luofeng frowned. What kind of woman had teacher offended? "Then, can you contact her?" Yun Luofeng asked calmly. "I have a way to contact her, but after I contact her, can you let me go?" Lin Qing's entire body was trembling, and her legs were trembling. Urine flowed out from between her pants, giving off a foul smell. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile. "Teacher sponsored your studies, yet you repaid his kindness with enmity and helped others to frame him. Do you think I can let you go?" "You..." Lin Qing's face turned pale. "If you don't let me go, I won't help you contact her." She had originally thought that Yun Luofeng would at least be shocked upon hearing these words. Unfortunately, she still had a smile on her face as she gazed at her with a faint smile. "Do you think I can't find her without you? I just don't want to waste too much time. Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't tell me, I can just kill you directly. Just take it as revenge for teacher." "No." Lin Qing's eyes were filled with terror. "Killing is against the law. You can't kill me." Chapter 22:15. Yun Luofeng had a smile on his face. That smile made Lin Qing's heart tremble. Especially when the woman's aura was like a huge mountain, pressuring her so much that she couldn't breathe. It was the first time she felt so close to death. "Tell me, are you willing to contact that person?" This sentence was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It made Lin Qing's heart completely collapse. Her face was pale and full of fear. I'll help you. Please don't kill me." Hearing this, Yun Luofeng retracted his aura and curled his lips. "Call her now. I want to know who dares to plot against my teacher." Under the woman's oppressive aura, Lin Qing reached out her trembling hand and picked up her phone. The yellow-haired young man was already sprawled on the ground. He didn't even dare to lift his head, afraid that these two people would really kill them. "I have that boss's number. All these years, I've been using this number to contact her. Because I used evidence to force her, she didn't dare to completely cut off all contact with me. This was the route she had found for herself so that she could extort money again. She didn't think that it would benefit Yun Luofeng." After saying this, Lin Qing dialed a number and put it on speaker at Yun Luofeng's signal. "Didn't I say not to look for me if there's nothing important? Why are you calling me now?" An angry voice came from the other end of the phone. The voice was deliberately lowered, as if afraid that someone would hear it. However, Yun Luofeng immediately recognized who it was. Her entire aura changed. The corners of her lips curled into a sinister smile and a storm surged in her dark eyes. Lin Qing was so shocked that she almost dropped her phone. She said with a pale face, "I've been short on money recently. Can you transfer me some more money?" "How dare you? I gave you so much money back then, and you still dare to look for me now." The voice was angry and sharp, but it made the smile on Yun Luofeng's face deepen. Even after so many years, it was impossible for her not to recognize the owner of this voice. This was the person who had forcibly taken over her family's assets and chased her out of the house. She hadn't expected that after she was blown up, these people wouldn't even let the teacher who had raised her off. "If you don't give me the money, I'll tell everyone that you paid me to frame teacher Fu Ru." Hearing this, Lin Qing was enraged. She had risked her own reputation to frame Fu Ru. In the end, Fu Ru wanted to get rid of her so easily. "Dream on. You." The woman on the other side of the phone seemed to be infuriated. She was silent for a while before saying, "Tell me a place and we'll meet. I'll give you the money." "Meet?" Lin Qing was stunned for a moment. Even when this woman asked her to frame Fu Ru, she had never shown her face. But now, she actually wanted to meet her. Faintly, fear crept into Lin Qing's heart. "Promise her." At that moment, a voice exploded in Lin Qing's mind, scaring her so much that she almost threw her phone away. Yes, that voice didn't come from her ears, but from her mind. It was no wonder that she was so scared. Lin Qing bit her lip and said, "Okay, then let's meet at the Nordic Cafe in front of my school." "All right." After the woman on the other side of the phone spoke, she immediately hung up, not giving Lin Qing any time to react. Lin Qing glanced at Yun Luofeng and asked timidly, "Is this enough?" Chapter 22:16. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile. "Tomorrow, I will find you at the place you agreed on. But, don't die too quickly." As soon as he said this, the two people standing in the room disappeared into thin air. Yes, they disappeared into thin air. This strange scene scared Lin Qing out of her wits. After a long time, she remembered what Yun Luofeng had said. But don't die too quickly. This sentence was like a curse that kept reverberating in her ears, causing her face to turn slightly pale. Could it be that the boss wanted to kill her? No. She held the blame for her crimes in her hands. She would never dare to do that. As she thought of this, Lin Qing's heart relaxed. The woman just now was just trying to scare her. How could the boss really kill her? Xiao Qing, she left. The yellow-haired young man stopped pretending to be dead and crawled up from the ground. She looked at the empty room and heaved a sigh of relief. How did you offend such a monster? At that moment, in the eyes of the yellow-haired young man, Yun Luofeng and his wife were definitely monsters. Lin Qing bit her lip. Come with me to see her tomorrow. What? The yellow-haired young man jumped up and laughed dryly. Xiao Qing, don't joke around. Didn't you hear what the woman said just now? The boss wants to kill you. Lin Qing's eyes darkened. Don't forget, you've spent quite a bit of my million. Why, are you not going to do anything now that something has happened? The yellow-haired young man laughed. I don't want to get involved in this mess. You go by yourself. As soon as he said this, he picked up his clothes from the sofa and quickly walked out of the door, not even turning back. You. Lin Qing's expression changed. Don't come back after you leave. However, the yellow-haired young man still left. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even look at Lin Qing again. Lin Qing collapsed onto the ground. Tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Her pale face was filled with despair. Men were indeed unreliable. When she still had money, he wouldn't go back on his word. Now that she had spent all her money and was in trouble, he ran faster than anything else. But Lin Qing had no other choice. She silently stood up and let her tears flow. Teacher Fu Ru, I'm sorry. At this moment, Lin Qing finally felt guilty. Of course, if Yun Luofeng had not appeared, she would never have felt that she had let Fu Ru down. Because she knew that even if that boss didn't do anything to her, Yun Luofeng wouldn't let her go, therefore, she regretted scheming against Fu Ru. If he could go back in time, he would never make the same mistake. At the same time, in a luxurious villa, Li Tsuetsui hung up the phone and frowned. Who's calling? What happened? Yun Tianqi looked at Li Tsuetsui and asked. It's nothing. Yun Tianqi did not know what she had done in the past. Otherwise, he would not have allowed her to bribe Lin Qing with such a large sum of money. It's fine if you don't want to say it. Yun Tianqi was in a good mood. He didn't want to pursue this matter. His face was full of smiles. His depressed mood had also lightened up. Li Tsuetsui sat beside him and asked, What happened today to make you so happy? Have you heard of the Miracle Doctor's Pharmacy? Yun Tianqi's lips curled into a smile. Very soon, the Miracle Doctor's Pharmacy will belong to the Yun Medical Company. Oh. Li Tsuetsui raised her eyebrows. She had heard of the Miracle Doctor's Pharmacy. It was said that it was very popular. Yun Tianqi also had the ability to buy the Miracle Doctor's Pharmacy. Chapter 22:17. Actually, I'm lucky to have such an opportunity. Yun Tianqi smiled proudly. You probably don't know who the doctor in the Miracle Doctor's medicinal hall is. He's Fu Ru, whose reputation was ruined back then. I've already asked people to publicize this matter and bribe those reporters. This time, I'd like to see how the Miracle Doctor's medicinal hall can turn the tables. Li Tsuetsui was stunned. She hadn't expected Fu Ru to work in the Miracle Doctor's Pharmacy. How could someone accept such a notorious person? She thought of meeting Lin Qing the next day and felt a little uneasy. Even she did not understand why this was happening. It was just Lin Qing. She could easily kill a nobody. If she hadn't had the evidence, she wouldn't have let her live for 5 years. However, she hadn't wasted the past 5 years. She had found out that Lin Qing didn't have any friends or relatives. Where could she have hidden the evidence? It would have been fine if she had abided by her duties, but now she was threatening her. She was courting death. Hubby, since the miracle doctor's pharmacy will be yours soon, I'm relieved. Li Tsue's eyes lit up. She snuggled into Yuntianqi's arms and stroked his chest with her fingers. She said seductively, "It's been a long time since we." Yuntianqi frowned and a look of disgust flashed across his eyes. Li Tsue was already old. She wasn't as young and beautiful as his little honey. He had already given all the food to his little honey. How could he have the energy to deal with an old woman? Therefore, he pushed Li Tsue away impatiently. "I've been very busy these days. I don't have time to think about these things." Very busy. Li Tsue's expression changed. She stood up with her hands on her hips and said, "Yuntianqi, tell me the truth. Do you have another woman?" Over the past year, Yuntianqi had only touched her a few times. It was said that men were like wolves in their 30s and tigers in their 40s. How could Yuntianqi tolerate it at his age? Li Tsue couldn't think of any other reason except that he had another woman. "What nonsense are you talking about all day long?" Yuntianqi looked at Li Tsue and said, "I'm so busy in the company every day, but you still come to make trouble for me. Can't you let me rest?" Just as Li Tsue was about to speak, a voice came from upstairs. "Dad, Mom, what are you doing?" Li Tsue glared at Yuntianqi and turned to look at the little girl who was holding a teddy bear doll on the stairs. The little girl was very cute, like a porcelain doll. Her pink princess dress made her look even cuter. "I still have to go to school tomorrow. Why are you guys fighting?" The little girl pouted her cheeks angrily and rubbed her sleepy eyes with her little hands. Her little face was obviously a little unhappy. Li Tsue laughed awkwardly. I was just having a conversation with your father. Did I disturb you?" "Hurry up and go to sleep, you still have to go to class tomorrow." "All right." Yun Shuolian glanced at Yuntianqi and Li Tsue and nodded obediently. She turned around and entered the room, closing the door gently. Li Tsue pinched Yuntianqi fiercely. "If I find out that you're with another woman, I'll never forgive you." Looking at Li Tsue's ferocious eyes, Yuntianqi frowned and didn't say anything. Chapter 22:18. The next day. Dawn. Yun Nianfeng took the school bag that Yun Luofeng handed over, his little face full of grievance. "Mother, I don't want to go to school. Why is this place so troublesome? Children have to go to school." He wasn't interested in those brats at school. Yun Luofeng's mouth twitched. "Endure it for a few more days, then we can go back." In fact, it was Fu Ru's decision to let Yun Nianfeng and Yun Chutian go to school. She still remembered a year ago, when Fu Ru found out that Yun Nianfeng and Yun Chutian didn't go to school, he looked at her as if he was looking at a stepmother. The children were already so big, but they weren't even allowed to go to school. Therefore, Yun Luofeng could only send them to school. However, Yun Nianfeng was not interested in the children in school. "Mother, even if you want to send me to school, you have to find a school with a lot of beautiful women. In that school, whether it's the students or the teachers, none of them are good-looking." Yun Nianfeng pursed his lips, and his pitiful expression was lovable. It was just that, no matter how one listened to it, these words were asking for a beating. However, in Yun Nianfeng's opinion, those students were not as good-looking as Yun Chutian, and the teacher was not even 1,000th of Yun Luofeng's. What was the point of him staying there? "In 2 days, I will settle the matters here." Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed. Of course, she hadn't wasted her efforts in this 1 year. She had found all the evidence of Yuntianqi and Li Tsue's crimes. Even her parents were killed by this group of heartless and unscrupulous people. Thinking of this, Yun Luofeng's heart clenched fiercely, and he let out a deep breath. "All right, you guys can go." Yun Luofeng patted Yun Nianfeng's shoulder and said, Nianfeng, you are the big brother. You must take good care of Chu Tian, understand? Mother, don't worry. I will not let anyone bully Tian. Yun Nianfeng pulled Yun Chutian's hand and quickly walked out of the room. After they left, Yun Luofeng turned to look at the man beside him. Yun Shao, things here will be over in a few days. Before I leave, I want you to accompany me to a place, Ping City. It was only 100 meters away from the capital, but it was a small city far smaller than the capital. Similarly, this was Yun Luofeng's hometown. Yun Shao, my family's villa property in the capital has been occupied by Yun Tianqi. Only this old house is left, but I heard that the old house here is about to be demolished. If you don't come today, you won't have a chance in the future. 20 years ago, her parents brought her back to their hometown to pay respects to their ancestors. Now that he thought about it, Yun Tianqi and his wife probably didn't want to let go of the villa left by his parents in the capital city, so they deliberately waited until they returned to their hometown to make their move. Fortunately, she survived that day. Yun Luofeng walked along the old road. She looked at the houses around her that were filled with the words torn down. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. Yun Shao seemed to have sensed her emotions as he pulled the woman into his arms tightly. His eyes were filled with deep affection and warmth. No matter what, I'm here. He would always be by her side and would never abandon her. We're here. Yun Luofeng paused and stopped in her tracks. She gently pushed open the shabby door and slowly walked in. There were still dried bloodstains on the ground. The messy room showed the scene from more than 20 years ago. That day, she hid under the bed and watched helplessly as her parents fell into a pool of blood. She was so scared that she didn't dare to say a word. Chapter 22:19. Back then, she was still young. That incident had become a shadow in her heart that she could never erase. Suddenly, Yun Shao tugged on Yun Luofeng's hand and pointed ahead. Yun Luofeng was stunned. She followed Yun Zhao's line of sight and saw a couple searching for something in a corner not too far away. The couple looked very confused, as if they couldn't find their way out of this maze. More importantly, their bodies were transparent. Yun Luofeng hurriedly covered her mouth as tears flowed down her cheeks. Her body trembled gently. If Yun Shao hadn't been holding her, perhaps she wouldn't have been able to hold on. Finally, she steadied her emotions and slowly walked towards the couple. Her voice was very soft, afraid that she would startle the two people in front of her if she used too much force. What are you looking for? When the man heard Yun Luofeng's words, he turned to look at the woman behind him. He clearly didn't recognize her. He said blankly, I'm looking for my daughter. Have you seen my daughter? This time, Yun Luofeng's tears fell again. She bit her lip tightly. I've seen her. Really? The man was so excited that he wanted to pull Yun Luofeng back. However, his hand went straight through Yun Luofeng's body as if he didn't feel anything. Then can you tell me where my daughter is? We've been looking for her for a long time, but she hasn't come back. Yun Luofeng's face was a little pale. Have you been looking for her? My daughter is timid. She'll definitely be afraid when it gets dark. She's a picky eater and only wants to eat her mother's cooking. It's already so late, I don't know if she's eaten outside. She has a weak personality and is easily bullied. If I don't find her and stay by her side to protect her, I won't be at ease. The woman cried out after hearing the man's words. It's already so late. Continue to wait for your daughter. I'll go prepare dinner. After saying this, the woman walked straight through the kitchen. However, how could there be any food in this room? So, not long after, the woman glanced out again and said angrily, Old Yun, where's the food? Where are the pork knuckles and mantis shrimps I bought earlier? Yun Luofeng clenched his fists. She remembered that before her parents died, they had already prepared a table full of dishes. Among the dishes were pork knuckles and mantis shrimps that she liked. Now, their memories had stopped at the night before they died, but they still remembered to look for her. He had been searching for her every single day. Dad, Mom. Yun Luofeng finally could not control her emotions. Tears streamed down her pale face, covering her beautiful features. The man was stunned for a moment. You are Feng. How come you've grown so big in such a short time? Dad, Mom, you don't have to worry. I'm not a coward anymore. I've long passed the age where I'm afraid of the dark. You don't have to worry that I'll be hungry. This is your son-in-law. He's good at cooking and has raised me well. You don't have to worry that I'll be bullied. Yun Luofeng's voice trembled, and he bit his lip hard as he spoke. Old Yun, I've already remembered. Have you forgotten? The woman's faint voice floated over. We're already dead. We were killed by someone. There's more today, because I want to finish this month. Chapter 22:20. The man's expression froze. He said blankly, that seems to be the case. We're already dead. What about our daughter? Is she still alive? Oh, that's right. The man seemed to remember something. His eyes turned to Yun Luofeng. You said you're our daughter. How many years has it been since we died? Yun Luofeng's heart ached. 20 years. 20 years. The man seemed to be reminiscing about the past. His lips curled into a smile. Time passes so quickly. It's already been 20 years. No wonder our daughter is already so big. His voice was filled with helplessness, regret, and a deep pain. Are you really? Xiao Feng. The woman floated to Yun Luofeng's side. She looked at the man next to her. He's your husband. Mother. Yun Luofeng wanted to grab the woman's hand but couldn't. She took a deep breath and said, wait for me. I'll definitely find a way to bring you back to life. I definitely will. Xiao Mo, come out. As soon as she finished speaking, a light flashed. Xiao Mo's figure appeared out of thin air. He tilted his head and looked at Yun Luofeng. Master, you want me to find a way to help you revive these two? That's right. Does the Encyclopedia of Medicine have a way to revive them? This. Xiao Mo hesitated. This is China, not the 7 continents. Many methods that can be used on the continents can't be used in China. It was good enough that they were able to retain their powers in China. If they wanted to be revived, they couldn't rely on the remaining spiritual energy in China. You mean to say that my parents can't be revived? What if I bring them to the 7 continents? If you're not afraid of their souls disappearing, you can try. Does that mean that they can't be revived in China? Plus, their bodies have already turned to ash. They've been dead for who knows how many years. There's no way to revive them, Xiao Mo continued. Yun Luofeng was able to revive Hong Luan because her body was well preserved. Plus, the spiritual energy in China was too weak. Even if there was a corpse, there was no guarantee that they could be revived. Xiao Feng. The man understood a little. He shook his head and said, before Mom and Dad leave, I'm satisfied to see you again and know that you're doing well. I don't have any other requests, so we can report to Hades without worry. After a person died, if they wished for the future, they would stay in the mortal world. Now that their wish had been fulfilled, it was time to leave. However, I want to know who killed your mother and I, and who separated our family of 3. Looking at the man's somewhat gloomy expression, Yun Luofeng's lips twitched as he said, Yun Tianqi, by the time Yun Luofeng left, it was already late. However, her body was very weak, as if she had no strength left. Yun Xiao hugged her waist tightly. Feng, believe me, I'll think of a way. Believe me, Yun Luofeng's expression changed slightly, and he weakly raised a smile. Actually, when I first came back to Huaxia, I should have come to take a look. Otherwise, Mom and Dad would have to wait for me for another year. But this place is my childhood nightmare. If it weren't for the fact that I'm about to leave China, perhaps I wouldn't have come here. I also wouldn't have known that they had always been looking for me and had never left. When her parents were still alive, she was happy and had grown up under their protection. However, that night 20 years ago was an eternal nightmare for her. Even to this day, she could not forget that night. Chapter 22-21. I'll find a solution. Yun Xiao lowered her head and kissed Yun Luofeng's lips with a smile. Is that okay? Okay. She believed in him. As long as he said it, he would definitely do it. Thinking of this, Yun Luofeng hugged Yun Xiao's waist tightly. Capital Primary School. Yun Yanfeng held Yun Chutian's little hand and ran out of the school happily. However, his speed was too fast, and he accidentally knocked down a person, causing him to stop in his tracks. Are you okay? Yun Yanfeng looked at the girl who fell to the ground like a doll and asked apologetically. This little girl was very pretty, but she was still lacking compared to his Chu Tian. Brat, how dare you knock into my daughter? Before the girl could speak, a well-dressed woman quickly ran over and picked up the little girl who fell to the ground. She glared at him angrily. Who's your parent? Hurry up and ask her to come out. Yanfeng. Yun Chu Tian pulled Yun Yanfeng's hand and pointed at the shrew-like woman with his eyes. Yun Yanfeng's gaze drifted over the woman's face, and his delicate little face was full of disdain. I've already apologized. What else do you want? Your daughter is really unlucky to have a mother like you. Tian, let's go. He pulled Yun Chu Tian and wanted to walk out. The woman was furious and reached out to push Yun Yanfeng, but Yun Yanfeng dodged and accidentally stretched his little foot forward. The woman immediately fell to the ground and screamed. Auntie, walk properly. Don't blame me if you accidentally fall. Yun Yanfeng made a face and quickly ran away when the woman came back to her senses. Mom. The little girl didn't care about the woman who fell to the ground at all. Her big watery eyes stared at Yun Yanfeng. This brother is really good-looking. Schwab wants to marry him. This child is so impolite. His parents are definitely not good people. You can't be interested in a beggar-like child like him. The woman snorted coldly and looked angrily in the direction Yun Yanfeng had left in. Her eyes darkened and she ordered, Uncle Li, go and investigate this child's background. Also, send the young miss back, I still have other things to do. Yes, madam. Uncle Li said respectfully from the side. Outside the school, Yun Yanfeng saw that no one was chasing them and frowned adorably. Why are we so unlucky to be in the same elementary school as that woman's daughter? Big brother, didn't mother already say that Yun Tianqi and Li Tsuei won't be able to live for more than a few days? Let her jump around for a few more days. Yun Chu Tian smiled brightly, revealing his cute canine teeth. That's right, the people they met just now were Li Tsuei and Yun Shuolian. Upon hearing this, Yun Chutian's smile blossomed. We won't have to go to school in a few days. I really hate staying with a bunch of brats, it's so boring. Hearing this, Yun Chu Tian rolled his eyes. These words were spoken as if you were not a little wimp. Let's go, Tian. Let's go home with big brother. Yun Yanfeng grabbed Yun Chutian's hand, carried his small school bag, and strode back. Anyway, They could leave after enduring for a few more days. He wondered how his mother's plan was going. Chapter 22. In the cafe. Lin Qing's gaze was a little worried. She looked at the people walking by and bit her lips tightly. Her face was slightly pale. Just then, she felt the urge to pee. She stood up and walked towards the washroom. When she reached the washroom, she felt relieved. But just then, the washroom door was slammed shut with a loud bang. Who is it? Lin Qing's expression changed. She quickly turned around and saw a woman with a scarf covering her face standing in front of her. Who are you? The woman in front of her laughed softly. Guess who I am? The voice was very familiar. It was so familiar that Lin Qing's eyes widened in shock. Her body leaned against the sink behind her. What do you want? Don't forget, the evidence of your crime is still with my friend. Li Tsue laughed coldly and slowly approached Lin Qing. I was really stupid 5 years ago. I was fooled by a little girl like you. Now, I've already found out that the evidence isn't with your friend at all. You've been hiding it all this time. If you die, do you think anyone will be able to see the evidence? Li Tsue laughed coldly. Lin Qing's body trembled. Her eyes were filled with fear. No. Suddenly, she did not know where she got the strength from. With a bang, she knocked into Li Tsue and ran out of the washroom while Li Tsue was stumbling. But the door of the bathroom was locked, and Lin Qing had nowhere to run. Li Tsue frowned. Her lips curled into a smile. Run. You won't be able to escape today. I had already planned to let you go. But you came to threaten me with your own death. After saying this, Li Tsue took out a knife. The sharp gleam of the knife reflected in Lin Qing's eyes. Her pupils slowly widened. The fear of death invaded her heart. Lin Qing's body trembled uncontrollably. She was filled with regret. If only she hadn't borrowed money from the loan shark in the beginning. Then, she wouldn't have listened to Li Tsue and framed her teacher. Whoosh. Suddenly, the light in the washroom started to flicker violently. It flickered violently between dark and bright. Ah! Lin Qing was extremely frightened. She screamed and slammed the door with all her might. However, the door had been locked from the outside, and there was no way out. What made Lin Qing feel like fainting was that she could clearly hear the voices of people talking outside. Ha! That's strange. Why is the bathroom door broken? You can't open it. Let's go to the waiters at the cafe and ask them to find someone to fix it. The tone of the two people outside the door was very normal, as if they did not hear the sound of the people inside the door. Lin Qing hurriedly shouted for help, help, help. Perhaps there was a reaction from the voice, but the two people outside the door stopped in their tracks. Did you hear someone talking? You must have heard wrongly. Why do I feel like it's the wind? As the voice faded away, so did the footsteps. Lin Qing's legs softened, and she almost fell to the ground. How could this be? She had clearly made such a loud noise, but why couldn't the people outside hear it? Could it be that those people were sent by this woman, and they deliberately didn't hear? Thinking of this, Lin Qing hurriedly turned to look at Li Tsue. She saw that the woman's eyes were also filled with fear. What was going on? Chapter 22-23. She wanted to kill Lin Qing quickly and leave. She even put up a sign saying that the toilet was out of order. Why would someone come? Was it all right if someone came? Lin Qing had already made such a loud noise. Why didn't anyone notice? This was too illogical. Ah. Suddenly, a cold laugh came from the empty toilet. Li Tsuetsue was shocked. She quickly rubbed her arm and bit her lip. You're about to die. Why are you still laughing? Lin Qing's eyes were filled with fear. I'm not laughing. Not laughing. Who else would be in this toilet other than us? Li Tsuetsue laughed coldly. Trying to scare her. No way. Lin Qing had to die. Thinking of this, Li Tsuetsue walked towards Lin Qing again. She flashed the knife in her hand and slashed it down. Ha! Another cold laugh rang in Li Tsuetsue's ears. This time, she clearly saw Lin Qing close her eyes in fear. Her mouth didn't even move. Did this mean that there was a third person in the toilet other than them? Li Tsuetsue's hand couldn't even hold on to the knife. She dropped it with a trembling hand. Her face was pale and her lips trembled. Who is it? At this moment, both Lin Qing and Li Tsuetsue felt that the temperature in the toilet was extremely low. The light was flickering, and it was eerie. It made their hair stand on end. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew past, right next to Li Tsuetsue's ear. She finally broke down. She screamed and quickly picked up the knife. She turned around and slashed down. But there was only air behind her. There was nothing. Who is it? Who is playing tricks on us? I, Li Tsuetsue, have never believed in ghosts or gods. Come out now. At this moment, a person in white flew past Li Tsuetsue. The speed was so fast that Li Tsuetsue staggered and almost fell to the ground. Who is it? Could it be that Lin Qing knew that she was going to kill her and hired someone to scare her? No, this woman couldn't be that smart. Drip, drip. In the quiet toilet, the sound of water dripping was very clear. Drop by drop, it landed beside her ears. Li Tsuetsue felt some water dripping on her head. She quickly raised her hand to wipe it. With the help of the flickering light, she saw that her hand was stained red. Blood. Ah! This scene gave Li Tsuetsue an intense fright. She screamed, and just as she was about to raise her head, a head of black hair suddenly fell from the top of her head and landed in front of her. When Lin Qing saw this, she felt dizzy and fainted. She fell to the ground softly. Li Tsuetsue also wanted to faint, but she couldn't. Her lips trembled. Are you a human or a ghost? Ha! The long-haired woman sneered. Her voice was faint and eerie. You don't remember me. The woman's two skeleton-like hands parted her long hair, revealing a hideous face covered in blood in front of Li Tsuetsue. Her eyeballs were about to fall out of her eye sockets. Her mouth cracked open wide, and she let out a sinister laugh. Tsuetsue, I miss you so much. You promised to take care of my daughter, why did you chase her away? Every word was like a ghost demanding for her life. It was also like the last straw that broke the camel's back for Li Tsuetsue. Her expression completely collapsed. Miao Fong, leave. Don't come looking for me. Don't come looking for me. She waved the knife with all her might, slashing at the hideous-looking woman in front of her. Every slash seemed to be hitting thin air, but the woman in front of her did not move at all. She just smiled eerily. Chapter 22-24. Li Tsuetsue, I really died a horrible death. Why didn't you let me go? Why didn't you let my daughter go? Under the flickering light, the woman's face was hideous and terrifying. Her miserable voice sounded like it came from hell. Li Tsuetsue was so scared that her whole body was trembling. Miao Fong, let me go. I didn't do it on purpose. It's all Yun Tianqi's fault. If you want to find someone, go find him. It's all his fault. Yes, it was all Yun Tianqi's fault. If he hadn't coveted his brother's property, they wouldn't have thought of this method to take it away. Both of you must die. Both of you must die. The woman's face suddenly enlarged in front of Lin Qing. It was dripping with blood, and there was a bloody hole in her chest that was continuously bleeding. Her two hands were already on Li Tsue's neck, and her expression was ferocious and terrifying. Ah! Li Tsue screamed. Her eyelids twitched, and she fainted. She didn't know what would happen next. When she woke up, she was already in the villa. She raised her hand and rubbed her sore neck. A trace of suspicion flashed across her eyes. Could it be? I'm dreaming. How could there be ghosts in this world? Moreover, if Miao Fong wanted to take revenge, she would have come long ago. She wouldn't have waited until now. Mom. The little girl's timid voice came from the side. Li Tsue slowly came back to reality. She turned around and looked at the little girl who was wearing a princess dress and holding a doll. She frowned and asked, "Your father hasn't come back yet?" The little girl nodded and said, "The police said that Mom fainted in the toilet of the coffee shop and sent Mom back. I just called Dad to tell him, but he said he was busy and didn't come back." Busy, busy, busy. I don't know what he's busy with all day long. Li Tsue angrily threw the pillow in her hand. Her expression was hideous and terrifying. Obviously, the little girl beside her was frightened. "Mom, did you fight with someone outside?" The little girl opened her big innocent eyes and asked in a childish voice. Li Tsue was stunned. "What do you mean?" "Mom, there are handprints on your neck." The little girl pointed at Li Tsue's neck with fear in her eyes. Li Tsue's expression changed. "Hurry and get me the mirror." "All right." The little girl responded obediently and ran to the dressing cabinet. She took a European-style dressing mirror and handed it to Li Tsue. Through the mirror, Li Tsue saw the blood-red handprint on her neck. She immediately screamed and threw the mirror away. Miao Fong. Miao Fong really came back. The previous scene was not a dream. Li Tsue hurriedly picked up the phone from the side and quickly dialed a number, but no matter how much the phone rang, the person on the other side did not answer. "Shuoyan, do you know where your father went?" Li Tsue bit her lips and asked. The little girl shook her head. "Daddy won't tell me." "Ask the driver to come." "I'm going to the company." Li Tsue hurriedly got up from the bed, quickly put on a coat and walked out. At this moment, at Yun Medical Company. In the office, the lights flickered. The man sat on the office chair, and a young girl sat on his lap. "Chairman, almost everyone in the company has left. Can we?" She slid her fingers across the man's chest and took off his clothes with familiarity. Her lips curled into a charming smile. Chapter 22-25. The man held the beautiful girl's waist tightly and kissed her on the lips. "This is the office after all. If my old woman rushes over, I'm afraid she'll catch us red-handed. Why don't we get a room later?" The girl pushed the man away and smiled seductively. "Chairman, didn't you say that Madam is sick and lying at home? She definitely won't come here. We haven't had sex in the office yet." "Ha!" Yun Tianqi laughed and couldn't wait to take off the girl's skirt. "In that case, we don't have to care so much. It doesn't matter even if that old woman sees us. My Yun family is getting bigger and bigger. She's useless now." After saying that, Yun Tianqi took off his pants and rushed forward. Just as he was about to rush forward, the office door was kicked open with a loud bang. "Tianqi!" Li Tsuetsue had just rushed in when the dazzling scene in the room was suddenly imprinted in her eyes, causing her whole person to be dumbfounded on the spot. Yun Tianqi didn't expect Li Tsuetsue to rush in at this time. A trace of panic flashed in his eyes. He hurriedly let go of the girl under him and explained anxiously, "Tsuetsue, listen to me." "Ah." Li Tsuetsue finally reacted and rushed towards the naked girl like a madman. Her sharp claws ruthlessly slashed at the girl's face. "You bitch. How dare you seduce someone else's man? I'm going to tear your face off." "Tsuetsue." Yun Tianqi pushed Li Tsuetsue away and protected the girl behind him. "Don't be so impulsive. She's innocent." "Innocent?" Li Tsuetsue's eyes widened. How could he say that a vixen who seduced someone else's man was innocent? "Yun Tianqi, I've been so good to you, and the Li family has been so kind to you. But what about you? Why are you doing this to me?" Li Tsuetsue's face turned pale with anger. She slapped Yun Tianqi's face. "No wonder you haven't touched me for the past year. It's because of this vixen. I'm telling you, I'll never let you two off." The girl, who was protected by Yun Tianqi, curled her lips into a sneer. "Li Tsuetsue, you deserve this. My trip to the Yun clan was not in vain. Not only will I steal your man, but I will also make you suffer so much that you will wish you were dead." "Enough." Yun Tianqi shouted, "Li Tsuetsue, don't think that I'm afraid of you. It's fine if you're the madam of Yun's family. Linda's appearance won't affect your position. If you're really so unreasonable, I'll divorce you." He originally wanted to explain, but this woman didn't look at herself. She was simply like a lunatic. He really couldn't raise any interest in this kind of lunatic. Li Tsuetsue trembled and pointed at Yun Tianqi angrily, "You want to divorce me?" For such a woman, he actually wanted to divorce her. "Yun Tianqi, I've suffered a lot because of you. Don't forget that you also had a part in killing Yunling and Miao Fang." "Shut up." Yun Tianqi hurriedly covered Li Tsuetsue's mouth as cold sweat trickled down his forehead. Although he was very close to Linda, he was not willing to let a third person know about this kind of thing. However, Li Tsuetsue didn't know where she got the strength to slap Yun Tianqi's hand and sneered, "Are you afraid?" "Unfortunately, it's useless to be afraid. Miao Fang came to find us." "Ha ha ha, she came to find us. We can't escape death, but you still have the mood to protect this woman." Chapter 22-26. In the empty office, Li Tsuetsue's laughter was so creepy that it made Yun Tianqi's hair stand on end. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he roared angrily. "I'm not talking nonsense. I saw her in the restroom of the coffee shop. She came to take revenge on us." Perhaps Li Tsuetsue's voice was so creepy that it made Yun Tianqi's heart tremble. However, at this moment, the light in the office went out with a bang. The entire office became pitch black. "What's going on? Is there something wrong with the company's power supply?" Yun Tianqi gritted his teeth and said, "Let's get out of here first. We'll talk about it when we get back." Li Tsuetsue sneered, "We can't leave. We can't leave anymore, lunatic." Yun Tianqi said fiercely and walked out of the office first. When Linda walked up to Li Tsuetsue, she paused for a moment and tilted her head to look at her. "Li Tsuetsue, you brought so much harm to my family. Today, I'll let you know what pain is." Li Tsuetsue was shocked. "Who are you? Have you forgotten? 2 years ago, your son killed someone. In the end, you bribed the police officer with money and were released without charge. The person killed by your son was my brother." "You?" Li Tsuetsue widened her eyes in astonishment. "You approached Tianqi on purpose. That's right. Linda sneered. My old parents went to you to ask for an explanation, but they were beaten up and driven out of the house. This time, I'm not only here to take revenge on you, but also to destroy the whole Yun family. Li Tsuitsui's son killed someone, but because she was rich, she acquitted her son and sent him abroad to avoid danger. She didn't expect that the bastard sister would come to find her. After saying that, Linda smiled sarcastically and walked out of the office. Li Tsuitsue was the only one left in the office. She couldn't get used to the darkness, so she quickly opened the door and chased after Yun Tianqi. Yun Tianqi, wait for me. Even though she knew that Miao Fong had come to find her and she couldn't escape, it was better than staying here alone. The corridor was dark. Yun Tianqi could vaguely see a blurry figure in front of him. The figure deliberately lowered his head, as if he was looking for something. His entire body was bent at an unusual angle, as if he could snap at any time. It's so late at night, why are there still people in the company? Yun Tianqi frowned and slowly walked up. When Li Tsuitsue saw that it was a man in front of her, she wasn't afraid. Instead, she quickly followed Yun Tianqi. But Linda had disappeared from the beginning. She wasn't with them. But at this time, how could Li Tsuitsue care about where that bitch was going? As long as she left the company, she had plenty of ways to torture her. The office has already closed. Why are you still here? A cold light flashed in Yun Tianqi's eyes. Could it be that the switch just now was triggered by this person? The man was still looking down. I'm looking for something. Have you seen it? Looking for something. Yun Tianqi frowned. What are you looking for? I'm looking for. The man's hunched body gradually straightened up. He turned his head in an unusual posture, but his body didn't move. Chapter 22-27. I'm looking for my eyes. Can you see them? Ah! A scream resounded in the office. Li Tsuitsue felt as if her heart had stopped beating. She looked at the man who had appeared in front of her with a pale face. The man was also badly mutilated, and his face was indistinguishable. A pair of skeletal eyes were bleeding, and the corners of his mouth were cracked. His mouth was so big that it could swallow a person. Ah, my eyes. The man smiled. My eyes were in your hands. Give them back to me. Hearing the man's sinister words, Li Tsuitsue lowered her head. Suddenly, she saw that the man was holding 2 eyeballs in his hands. She was so scared that she immediately threw them away and knelt down. Brother, please don't come looking for us. I know I was wrong. I'll burn incense for you when I go back. Please don't scare me. Even though she could not see the man's face clearly, she could tell his identity from his figure. Moreover, the assassin they had sent had indeed gouged out his eyes. Even his face had been chopped off by the assassin she had sent. I finally found my eyes. Thank you. The man's tone was polite, but his voice was sinister. However, where is my daughter? I still have a daughter. Didn't you promise to take care of her? Can you give my daughter back to me? Give her back to me. The man's figure floated to Yun Tianqi's side. His expression was ferocious and terrifying. I want my daughter. I want my daughter. Yun Tianqi, who had been greatly frightened, finally came back to his senses. He let out a terrified cry. Brother, is it you? Are you really back? Give me back my daughter. Give me back. Another gloomy voice rang out. A woman in white floated over and strangled Yun Tianqi's neck with both hands. You heartless bastards. You killed my people, stole my money, and abused my daughter. Cough, cough. In the woman's hands, Yun Tianqi felt breathless. His face was red as he looked at the woman in front of him, whose face was covered in blood, in horror. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law, I was wrong, Litsuetsue did not lie to him. They really came back for revenge. Ha ha ha. The woman let out a series of sneers. Apologize. I will wait for you to come to Hades and apologize to us. Yun Tianqi's eyes began to roll, and his mind went blank. He did not know how much time had passed. Just when he thought he was going to die, the hand that was strangling her loosened. Yun Tianqi opened his eyes and found that the two ghosts in front of him had disappeared. He quickly touched his neck and took a deep breath when he felt the fresh air. We are still alive. The feeling of being alive was so good. Let's go. If we don't leave now, we won't make it. After saying that, Yun Tianqi hurriedly strode into the elevator. After Litsuetsue came in, he pressed the button for the first floor. Yun Tianqi heaved a sigh of relief when he sensed the speed at which the elevator was descending. However, before he could completely vent his anger, he suddenly realized that although the elevator was descending, the button was still on the 10th floor. What was going on? I can't leave. Litsuetsue sneered, none of us can leave today. They won't let us go. Shut up. Yun Tianqi roared angrily. His eyes were bloodshot as he pressed the button for the first floor fiercely. I don't believe that we can't get out of here. It's just a ghost. Can a dead person fight against a living person? Chapter 22-28. Litsuetsue smiled coldly and closed her eyes. She sat quietly in the corner of the elevator as her entire body trembled. Yun Medical Company. Not far away, two transparent figures stood under a tree. Under the moonlight, their faces were no longer as ferocious as before. Their faces had returned to normal and were filled with gentleness. Xiao Luofeng, we've already given these two a scare. I'm guessing they're about to break down. The woman giggled. Her laughter was filled with joy. In the end, it turned into a soft sigh. However, it's time for us to go. Mom. Yun Luofeng held the woman's hand tightly. When the time comes, I'll come and see you again. Miao Fong laughed. Our wish has been fulfilled. You won't be able to go where we're going. If fate wills it, we'll meet again in our next lives. With that, their figures became more and more transparent until they disappeared. Yun Luofeng watched them leave. The corners of his lips curled into a slight smile. No one can stop me from going anywhere I want in the 7 continents. Do you think I'll be restricted in China? Yun Xiao, let's go. With that, she slowly turned around and left in the direction they came from. At that moment, Litsuetsue and Yun Tianqi had no idea that Yunling and Miao Fong had already left. However, Miao Fong had found some kids nearby to prank them and prevent them from leaving the elevator. That night's torture was enough to make them suffer. Of course, the truth was the same. When someone came to the company the next day, they found Litsuetsue curled up in a corner of the elevator on the 1st floor. Meanwhile, Yun Tianqi was pressing the elevator button with a crazed look on his face. His eyes were filled with fear. When he realized that the elevator door had opened, he rushed out like a madman and laughed. His crazed expression shocked everyone who came to the company. I'm free. I'm finally free. He laughed out loud, his bloodshot eyes filled with malevolence. Although Litsuetsue did not show anything, she kept muttering to herself, Miao Fong, don't look for me. This has nothing to do with me. I didn't mean to kill you, kill me. Everyone was shocked and hurriedly called the police. Someone else went to the surveillance room to see what had happened. However, after seeing what happened in the elevator last night, everyone was puzzled. The elevator had already descended to the 1st floor. Why was Yun Tianqi still pressing the button crazily? It was as if there was something terrifying in the elevator. Soon, the police arrived. The words that Li Tsuei said when she had a mental breakdown had become evidence of her harming others. They began to investigate the matter thoroughly. Originally, with the Li family's wealth, wanting to fish Li Tsuei out wouldn't be much of a problem. Unfortunately, Nangong Uni had already informed the Nangong family's old patriarch. The old patriarch also spoke to the police chief, and this matter was treated as an important case for investigation. He wouldn't have known if he hadn't investigated, but once he did, he was shocked. First, someone brought out evidence of Li Tsuei framing Fu Ru 5 years ago, and then someone passed on the scene in the cafe's toilet to the police station. Of course, the part where Miao Fong appeared to scare people was deleted. Later, through Li Tsuei's own words, the police found out that she and Yun Tianqi had hired a hitman to kill people many years ago, forcibly occupied her brother's property, and even framed and drove Yun Luofeng, the only daughter of her brother's family, out of the family. All of a sudden, the news spread all over the internet. Many people demanded that Yun Tianqi and his wife be severely punished. Otherwise, they would feel sorry for the people they had hurt. Chapter 22-29. At the same time, Linda came too. She hadn't worked for nothing in the past year. Not only had she caused a rift between Li Tsuei and her husband, but she had also obtained evidence of Yun Tianqi's son's murder. As a result, Yun Tianqi's son was sent back to China, and the deputy director of the police station who had covered up for him was also locked up. Not only that, but the Li family, which had both legal and illegal connections, was also exposed for bribery and gun possession. Therefore, the Commission for Discipline Inspection immediately came looking for them. Fu Ru's grievances were cleared, and the scandal that had been exposed no longer existed. Unfortunately, Yun Luofeng didn't plan on letting off the reporters who had been paid off. He uploaded the photos of the reporters and the person in charge of the Yun group online. Since Fu Ru had been framed by Li Tsuei, the fact that the reporters were in contact with the Yun family proved that they were innocent. Suddenly, the company that the reporters worked for became the target of the public's attention, and it was impossible for them to develop in the future. "Mother, can we finally go?" Seeing that everything had been settled, Yun Yanfeng blinked her big watery eyes and asked expectantly. Yun Luofeng smiled. "I still need to go somewhere. I need to meet someone." After saying this, Yun Luofeng immediately left the room. She did not say a word to Yun Xiao as she walked out the door. Meanwhile, in the prison, Li Tsuei's hair was disheveled, and she looked disheveled. She curled up into a ball and shivered. "Number 27, someone is looking for you." Suddenly, a cold voice came from outside the door. Li Tsuei's lips trembled, but she was dragged out of the prison. As soon as she reached the door of the meeting room, Li Tsuei saw Yun Tianqi walking in from the other direction. Her throat was a little dry, and her eyes were filled with regret. "Why are you so slow? Hurry up and leave." The prison guard kicked Yun Tianqi. "I didn't expect such a cruel person to exist in this world. He killed his brother and sister-in-law, robbed them of their money, and even chased their only daughter out of the family. TSK, I remember the news from more than a decade ago. These two shameless things even said that they donated all their money. They even claimed that their niece wanted to murder their son, so they had no choice but to send her to the orphanage. I think they wanted to take other people's money but were unwilling to raise their daughter, so they came up with this trick. Executing such people is letting them off too lightly. They should be punished with the most extreme torture. Unfortunately, the Qing dynasty has fallen, and torture no longer exists." Hearing the words of these prison guards, Li Tsuei bit her lips tightly. She wanted to say something, but she was suddenly pushed into the door. Inside the room, the woman was slowly sipping tea at the table. The corners of her lips curled into a smile. Perhaps she had sensed the people who had entered the room. She raised her head slightly, revealing her stunning face to Li Tsuetsue and Yun Tianqi. "It's you." Li Tsuetsue's expression changed and she took a few steps back. "You can't still be alive. Wasn't she supposed to be dead? Why was she here?" "Nothing is impossible in this world." Yun Luofeng slowly got up and walked toward the two of them. "I'm back. Don't you welcome me?" Li Tsuetsue's expression changed. "Are you behind all this?" "You can say yes, but you can also say no." Yun Luofeng smiled. "I'm just scaring you. It's really my parents who died because of you." At that moment, two hideous faces appeared in Li Tsuetsue's mind again. She was so frightened that her heart trembled, and she subconsciously took 2 steps back. Chapter 22:30. Yun Luofeng, I never thought that you would come back. If he had known that this woman would bring such a disaster upon them, he would not have let her off that year. I'm here to tell you that I'm back. Also. Yun Luofeng was stunned. She then raised the corners of her lips. I'm the boss behind the miracle doctor's medicine hole. Boom. Yun Tianqi was dumbfounded. He stared at the beautiful face in astonishment. His face turned pale as he asked, "Did you say that you're the boss behind the miracle doctor's medicine hole?" "That's right. However, I never thought that you would cause trouble for the miracle doctor's medicine hall so soon." Yun Luofeng raised the corners of her lips and a smile appeared on her face. "Since we've met, if you're lucky, perhaps we won't meet again." However, that was only a possibility. After saying this, Yun Luofeng no longer paid any attention to the two people with ugly expressions in the room and walked out. Yun Tianqi was in a daze. He clutched his head tightly with a pained expression on his face. It's over. We're all finished. They had committed so many crimes that the law would never forgive them. Humph. Li Tsuetsue scoffed. Her gaze was ferocious as she said, "That bitch Miao Fang actually dared to scare me. I'll settle the score with that bitch when I'm in hell." 2 police officers led Li Tsuetsue and Yun Tianqi to their respective cells. However, someone soon came to inform her that her daughter had arrived. Logically speaking, Li Tsuetsue should not be allowed to visit her in prison due to her serious crimes. However, Yun Shuolian was only a child. She would definitely be sent to an orphanage in the future. Hence, the court allowed her to visit her one last time. "Mother." Yun Shuolian ran into Li Tsuetsue's arms the moment she saw her. Tears streamed down her face as she said, "Mother, those people are going to send me to an orphanage. I'm so scared. You and father can't leave me behind." Shuolian. Li Tsuetsue lowered her eyelids as a malicious light flashed across her eyes. "Mama will no longer be able to stay by your side in the future. Remember one thing, your enemy is Yun Luofeng. It was he who caused the deaths of your parents and made you an orphan. Dad and Mom were framed by her. She even bribed the people in the police station. If you have the chance in the future, you must avenge Mom." Yun Shuolian raised her little face. Her face was full of tears and she looked very confused. "Mommy, I don't understand what I'm doing. There's a photo in my hometown. The woman in that photo is Yun Luofeng. Remember her appearance. When you grow up, you must avenge your mother." "Mom," the little girl held on to Li Tsuetsue's sleeves tightly and cried miserably. "No, I don't want you and Dad to leave, and I don't want to go to the orphanage. Those people will bully me." "Shuolian, listen to me." Li Tsuetsue lowered her head and stroked Yun Shuolian's head. She sneered, "Yun Luofeng is the evil one. He is wicked beyond redemption. If you have the chance, don't let him go. Yun Shuolian's body trembled as she bit her lips. At this moment, it was time to visit the prisoner. 2 policemen dragged Li Tsuetsue away. Mom! Yun Shuolian ran towards Li Tsuetsue. Her small body accidentally fell to the ground and she wailed bitterly. She watched as the prison guards dragged Li Tsuetsue away. Her large eyes were filled with intense hatred. Why does mother have to suffer like this? Why is the real evil person getting away scot-free? I want revenge, I want to avenge my parents. Chapter 22-31. Hua Xia. Foreign chapters. Yun Shuolian crawled up from the ground. Her pale little face was full of tears as she silently walked towards the door. At that moment, Yun Luofeng, who had already left the prison, did not know about the things that Li Tsuetsue had handed to Yun Shuolian. Even if she knew, she probably wouldn't care. Luofeng. Just as he reached the entrance of the Miracle Doctor's medicine hall, he met Nangong Yuni and Hong Wuan. The 2 of them turned their heads and saw Yun Luofeng. Their hearts filled with joy as they welcomed him. Luofeng, why are you here? Hong Wuan hooked Yun Luofeng's arm and asked with a smile. We're about to leave. I still have some things to tell you. Yun Luofeng curled his lips and slowly walked towards the Miracle Doctor's medicine hall. At that moment, there was still a guest in the Miracle Doctor's medicine hall. When he saw that guest, a strange light flashed across Yun Luofeng's eyes. The woman who was entangled with Xue Dong also noticed that someone had arrived. She turned her head and looked. When she saw Nangong Yuni's handsome face, a look of astonishment flashed across her eyes. It's you. Wasn't this the poor boy whom she had rejected back at Huaxia University? Why was he here now? Chi, who is he? The handsome man beside the woman also saw Nangong Yuni walking over. He frowned and pulled Liang Qi into his arms as he asked provocatively. Liang Qi bit her lip. He's just one of my pursuers. Back then, he was involved in the Huaxia University laboratory explosion. However, some time ago, someone told me that he was still alive. I didn't believe it. I never thought that he would really come back. To be honest, Liang Qi used to have a good impression of Nangong Yuni. However, her good impression was eventually defeated by reality. She was born poor and only wanted to find a piece of bread to marry. No matter how good Nangong Yuni's impression was, she couldn't possibly accept a poor boy. Oh, so he's your former pursuer. How's his family situation? The man raised his head arrogantly and sized up Nangong Yuni. A look of disdain flashed across his eyes. His family situation is rather ordinary. Ordinary? Then he's a poor boy. Such a poor boy still dares to woo a woman. The man sneered twice, his eyes constantly sweeping over Yun Luofeng and Hong Wuan, who were standing beside Nangong Yuni. Nangong Yuni's expression darkened bit by bit, but before he could speak, Yun Luofeng's voice rang out from the side. Xue Dong, chase these 2 out. You. The man's expression changed. This godly doctor's medicine hall is open for business, of course it's to earn money. I have plenty of money, if they dare to kick me out, I can make this shop close. Liang Qi grabbed the man's arm and said, Brother Nan, let's not cause any trouble. Let's go. Why should I leave? The man's cold eyes swept over Nangong Yuni. Brat, you dare to chase after this father's woman, you must apologize to this father. When Liang Qi saw that the man was unwilling to leave, she continuously gave Nangong Yuni a meaningful look. Nangong, apologize to Brother Nan and have him let you go. Otherwise, I won't be able to help you. Towards Nangong Yuni, she once had feelings for him. Although she didn't accept him, she couldn't harden her heart towards a man who had a good impression of her. Tisk, Hong Luan laughed. Her smile was filled with ridicule. Today, I've learned something new. My man didn't even say a word and you're forcing him to apologize. Chapter 2232. Hearing this, Liang Qi was stunned. She then looked at Hong Luan. She knew Yun Luofeng, but this was her first time meeting this woman. The woman in front of him was extremely beautiful. Her red dress accentuated her figure perfectly. There was a smile in her almond-shaped eyes and the corners of her lips curled up into a smile. Nangong, is she your wife? Liang Qi pursed her lips. Why haven't I seen her when I was at Huaxia University? Which school did she graduate from? I've never gone to school. Because she only knew how to fight. You didn't go to school. Liang Qi was stunned. She said bitterly, in any case, we were classmates. I can't bear to see you fall like this. You were so outstanding that you wanted to work hard. Why did you marry such a woman? She doesn't deserve you at all. Even if she didn't want Nangong Uni, she definitely didn't want to see Nangong Uni bring a woman to bully her. Nangong Uni's eyes flashed with disappointment. He wondered if he had been blind to fall in love with such a snobbish woman. Nangong, seeing that Nangong Uni didn't say anything, Liang Qi wanted to speak again. But who knew that Nangong Uni would suddenly step forward, grab her by the collar and throw her away. At this moment, there were many people in the miracle doctor's medicine hall. When they saw Nangong Uni's actions, they were shocked. They hurriedly scattered to the side, allowing Liang Qi's body to fall heavily into the crowd. You! Liang Qi's eyes widened in disbelief. She looked at Nangong Uni in astonishment. Her face was pale and her entire body trembled. I've never hit a woman, but I've made an exception for you. Nangong Uni sneered, do you really think you're something? How dare you criticize Huan her? Even if you spend 1,000 years, you won't be able to learn what she knows. So what if you're in university? My Luan her can crush you with one finger. The corner of Hong Luan's mouth twitched. Why did she feel like Nangong Uni was describing her as a shrew? Brother Nan. Liang Qi's body trembled in anger and she cried out in grievance. Her aggrieved voice brought the man called Brother Nan back to his senses. He aggressively charged towards Nangong Uni. How dare you touch my woman? You're courting death. He swung his fist towards Nangong Uni, but before his fist could reach Nangong Uni, it was blocked by a lily-white hand. Nangong said that I can crush you to death with one hand, and that's not a lie. Unfortunately, Fallen Maple also said that you can't casually kill people in this place. So, you should thank the rules and regulations of this place for letting you keep your life. After saying that, Hong Luan lifted the man up with one hand and threw him away. Bang! The man fell to the ground in a sorry state. His face was ashen and he was ashamed. Police! Suddenly, at this time, a police siren came from outside the door. After a while, a group of policemen rushed into the pharmacy and asked, "Who called the police just now?" Xue Dong raised his hand weakly. "It's me." If he had known that Nangong Uni and his woman were so powerful, he wouldn't have called the police. "What's the matter?" the leading policeman asked coldly. Xue Dong pointed at Brother Nan and Liang Qi who were lying on the ground. "They're the ones causing trouble in the Miracle Doctor's Medicine Hall." In today's China, the Miracle Doctor's Medicine Hall had an extremely high status. It was only because of the elixirs provided by the Miracle Doctor's Medicine Hall that made China's military power even stronger. So, when they heard that someone was causing trouble in the Miracle Doctor's Medicine Hall, the group of policemen didn't dare to be negligent. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.